Off the fake, pass caught, touchdown, Green Bay, Romeo Dobbs.
That capped off a little 96-yard drive, gave the Packers a 7-0 lead. It was easy pitch and catch for the Packers on offense, and defensively, they made Jaden Daniels and Washington's vaunted offense look bad. Good morning, everybody. Woo! Not exactly what we were hoping for last night. There's a long way to go in this season. They're going to play the other 15 regardless of what happened last night. My game take coming up, your chance to weigh in a little bit later on this hour. I've got a smell test, including some games tonight that I like, a preview of the rest of the NFL card. Ben Standig scheduled to join us. Dan Quinn may hold his day after press conference during this show. If he does, we'll carry some of that for sure. Let's start here, because sometimes, when we watch these games, we come in and there are a lot of different ideas, a lot of different descriptions of what happened. Last night was really easy to describe. If you're a football fan and you watch that game, you know what happened. Green Bay was the better team by miles last night, and they bullied Washington all night long. They did. They were a much better team. It wasn't close, and they bullied Washington in the trenches and everywhere else where it matters last night for 60 minutes. 27-18 does not do last night justice if you're a Packers fan. That game was one-sided from the jump, and only the score didn't reflect it. That was it. The fact that Washington got to within 17-10 was a miracle. And you know what? Based on what we watched all last year, who didn't think, hey, put the ball back in Five's hands and let's see what happens? But they couldn't get off the field after they closed it to 17-10. Green Bay went right down the field, scored on a ridiculous, easy throw to Tucker Kraft. He's still open this morning to make it 24-10. Pretty much game over. Look, there's so much season to go, and there is an evolution of these teams. We've seen that over the years. This is still the early portion of the season. It can be very misleading. There's no doubt about that. Teams evolve. The league is week to week. But make no mistake, Green Bay's a very good team, exceptional defensively, and very capable offensively. They look right now through 2 weeks like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. They do. They have beaten two teams in the first 2 weeks of the season. The one seed from last year in the NFC, the Lions, they dominated that game. And then they come back 4 nights later, and they beat the team that made it to the NFC title game last year and lost to Philadelphia in easy beatdown fashion. They're very good. And last night was one of those moments in a season, and it's a long season, even though it goes by quickly, but it was an early test. Washington didn't pass it, and it was very much a reality check last night to sort of put themselves side by side with a team that is now the second favorite in the NFL to win the Super Bowl behind Buffalo. They jumped from behind Buffalo, behind Baltimore, behind Philadelphia to number 2 after their performance last night. The reality check for Washington is that after last game, Sunday's game against the Giants, up against a really good team right now, they're not anywhere near good enough, especially in the trenches, especially on offense. Because last night in the trenches, that was an ass kicking. The Packers dominated both sides of the football all night long. I mean, it was an absolute suffocating performance for their defense. We've watched now 22 games of the Kingsbury Jaden Daniels offense. Nobody's done to this offense what Green Bay did last night. Was there an answer? I'll get to that in my game take, because I think there was a punch back answer that never came. But we have not seen this offense and this quarterback bottled up quite like that. Maybe the first half of the Dallas game in the season finale that really didn't matter that much. Maybe actually parts of the Dallas game at home last year. Maybe the Philly game on Thursday night last year when it was a short turnaround coming off that, draining long game against the Steelers. But I don't think we've seen anybody shut down this offense and give them no answers, or at least none that they explored in a game last night. It was in the trenches up front where our offensive line struggled big time. Maybe it was the competition. That was part of it, no doubt. But then the back end, my God, nobody's open. Nobody is open. You rush 4 and you've got 7 with eyes on the quarterback in zone coverage. You got to get open quickly somewhere. That coverage was blanket coverage, sticky coverage. Nobody was open. Maybe the all-22 will reveal a play here or there where Jaden could have gotten it out quickly and Terry maybe won somewhere, but it didn't appear that way. And, last night was the first time in this situation. Again, Philly last year, maybe the Dallas game, but that Dallas game season finale, you throw that out because that was not they had already clinched the playoff berth. Yeah, there was some seeding at stake. They pulled Jaden, remember, at halftime to rest him and many of the starters. Marcus Mariota came in. But that's the first time last night in that situation where Jaden Daniels didn't do what we've seen him do many times, which is go into the phone booth, put on the cape, come out as Superman, and win the game by himself. He didn't do that last night. He had very little time. The pass protection was horrendous all night long. I mean, that's a good pass rush. Nobody was open, but he didn't do what we've come to expect from him, which is no running game, O-line's an issue, need you to do it, 5. We need you to create. We need you to make plays. And he didn't last night. Crazy. He didn't. There was not one moment where you're like, here he goes. He's going into that mode like the Atlanta game, like a lot of games last year. No, they just didn't allow it. I don't think, and I saw a lot of this on my social media timeline, I don't think he was confused at all. I think that they were just manhandled everywhere, and they did a phenomenal job not confusing him, but containing him. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They covered up all of the receivers, and then they were able to rush in a way where he was contained and he didn't have opportunities. He didn't have opportunities to impact the game in the way that we all know he is capable of impacting a game. Never happened. Never happened. I saw this stat this morning. Didn't see it until this morning. Micah Parsons obviously is pretty good. He had 6 pressures in the game. He only had a half a sack. So what? His 6 pressures forced Jaden Daniels into 1 for 3 passing, 9 yards, 3 scrambles, 9 yards. That's what Micah Parsons did last night. 6 pressures, 18 total yards. It's not what we saw last year when there were pressures. We saw teams get absolutely shredded when there was pressure. Not last night. That leads me to this. I hated the plan last night. I hated the lack of changing the plan. When it was obvious that they were not going to be able to protect, that it was not only going to be pressure, but very often immediate pressure. I didn't feel in watching the game, and this is where it gets a little bit dicey for people like us. We're just fans. We're not there. It's probably a lot easier said than done, or a lot more difficult than it is to talk about, to make adjustments in a short week mid-game. But I thought they were getting bullied up front. and I wanted to see him smack back. 48 dropbacks. And then the running backs in the game, just 12 runs. I thought it was soft. I did. I don't know if it would have worked. I have no idea if running the ball with Bill Krosky-Merritt, who had 4 carries, 17 yards. All right, so it was the most productive part of the offensive night for the most part, were those 17 yards, over 4 yards per carry. I don't know that if they had continued to give him an opportunity, if it would have worked. But the other thing wasn't working. The plan you came in with to try to, be patient against the zone, throw underneath, turn it upfield, create yards after catch, that wasn't working because the pressure was so quick and the receivers couldn't get open. You know what a running game does? It helps a team that can't throw the football. On that night, last night, they couldn't throw the football. It helps suppress a pass rush when you can run the football. They never tried. I think that's a mystery for me. I am sure they would sit down and say, look, we thought we could, against that zone, we thought we could block 4 and throw underneath and have our Deebo Samuels and Terry McLaurins and Zach Ertzes and Jalen Lanes and Austin Eckler's turn it up and make some plays to move the sticks. Because that's how you have to kind of do it against what Green Bay was doing. But they couldn't block up the 4, and they couldn't get open against the 7. I think in a game like that, especially after his opener, I would have liked to have seen Bill get more than 4 carries in the game. I hate being the guy that says the play calling sucked. Why didn't you run the ball more? But man, last night, they had no chance dropping back. And here's the thing, the score never got out of control. I mean, it was odd. It should have been out of control, but it never got out of control. So there was no reason not to try that, unless they would say, yeah, that we were not going to be able to do that. We couldn't protect and we couldn't block them in a run game. And it would have just been a slower death, or maybe a quicker death because the clock would have run. Meantime, last night wasn't just a loss on the field. It may be a loss in the locker room because of the injuries. We'll get an update from Ben when he joins us, but Eckler looks like an Achilles for sure. Non-contact, carted off. That can't be good. Wise was carted off for a quad. That didn't look good. Bates left the game with a groin and didn't come back. Brandon Coleman left. He did come back. Noah Brown left the game. He didn't come back. And then late in the game, Jaden rolled an ankle, although he did not come out of the game. So a loss 10 days before their next game, but perhaps a costly loss. Austin Eckler is an important player on this team. We knew that there was a chance he wasn't going to survive a season. Last year, 2 concussions. He's an older back. But I'll tell you what, they're going to miss him. And I hope it works out for him. I hope it isn't, the Achilles tear. And if it is, obviously he is done for the year. And, at his age, that would be difficult to come back from. So we'll keep an eye on all of that and see what information comes out this morning. Look, offensively, a really bad night, especially in the trenches. Defensively, not much better. I mean, this is why after a season opening game, you got to put the brakes on anything that you think is 100% true. Yes, I was with some of you in that I was optimistic that they had better players on defense and that there was a chance that the defense was going to be much better, but cautioned over and over again, most of you understood this, that they played the Giants. They played Russell Wilson and the Giants. And last night, the Packers were not the Giants. So part of the reality check last night was we need to hold off on crowning the defense as the 2000 Ravens defense or the 85 Bears defense. Not quite yet. Not so fast. Because they got lit up by Jordan Love, who did whatever he wanted to do in the first half. And really, when you look at this game, the only reason they didn't score 37 or 40 instead of the 27 is that they had a lot of penalties. They also missed a couple of big plays. They missed one to Golden Deep. They missed a field goal. And you know what? To the defense's credit, in the second half, I actually thought with the blitz pressure, it seemed like they increased the extra man pressures. Because Jordan Love, I said this yesterday, if you let him sit back there and you don't get after him, he will carve you up. He can flat out throw the football, and he sees the field. When you pressure him, like most quarterbacks, it's not the same. So they did pressure him a little bit in the second half, but the damage had already been done. It was a bad night, similar, very similar, almost in score exactly, to the Philadelphia game last year on Thursday night when they went in there and they looked, very, very vanilla. They looked unprepared was more about the Fangio and having that thing. I didn't feel necessarily that way about last night. I hated the plan or the lack of adjusting the plan once you realize the plan was not going to work. But it was a rough night. I think the roughest night last year was the game in Philly, on that Thursday night. That was the one in which we said, eh. And, Jaden may not have been 100, but he was fine. He had played very well the 2 weeks previous to that. You were then 3-4 weeks, away from the Carolina game where he had the rib injury. But that was, a rookie against Vic Fangio and a great defense. And last night it was, a team short week against a phenomenal defensive football team. Man, they were good defensively on paper coming in. With Micah Parsons, they are elevated to something approaching perhaps top 2-3 defenses in the league. That's what they faced. Injuries will be a big part of the next few days. They've got 10 days to get ready for the Raiders a week from Sunday. The Raiders play on Monday night, the second game of a doubleheader. So they'll be coming east on short rest. Washington has the long opportunity. And I would say for a season in which there are high expectations of playoffs and of contending in the NFC in the postseason, it's a pretty big game a week from Sunday at home against the Raiders, because after that, they go on the road to play Atlanta and the Chargers. This is a week-to-week league. We understand that. They're not going to end the season if they lose to the Raiders. They're still going to play the rest of them, but it feels, and it will feel like this during the course of next week as we approach it, like a pretty big game for Washington. And if they had just lost, but played well and lost last night, a 28-27 game that was back and forth, both teams played well, they were comparable, then it may not have felt that way. But because of the loss and the way they lost the game, feels like we need to see this team look more like it looked last year on offense in week 3 against the Raiders. And it's going to be an opportunity for this new defense to bounce back off a performance in which it struggled mightily. All right, game take next. Before we get to that, Max, I know you were as excited as I was, and everybody was, to sit down and watch this game against the Packers last night. So, do you have anything to add to that? This was kind of an easy one.
Yeah, it was.
To analyze.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm not going to go into like how I think they can fix it, but I mean, you mentioned it earlier, giving Bill only 4 carries for 17 yards when he averaged 4 yards a pop. Like, you got to switch it up. You got to try something else. Giving Jordan Love all the time in the world to throw the ball in the first half, that's really what killed you, because he was able to get into that rhythm. But he was a completely different quarterback when you showed pressure, and I just didn't see enough of that coming down the stretch or in the second half to kind of put more pressure on him. But the offense has got to they got to tighten it up. I don't know, like I said, how to fix it, but at the same time, last year, if you go back, the Tampa Bay game and the Giants game, week 1 and 2, they didn't look good either, and then they really found their stride week 3 against the Bengals on Monday Night Football. So hopefully they kind of get it in gear, especially with the mini bye. But yeah, man, it's a tough one. Packers are a really good team. I understand completely why a lot of people are picking them as a Super Bowl contender, and they should be. This team is their defense is insanely fast. They just really just got Jaden kind of off his spot, off his rocker, and it just didn't. It never really materialized in anything for us. So yeah, at Green Bay, credit to them, man. It was a good one. All
right, let's get to my game take. We'll do that when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. All right, what I liked, what I didn't like, that list, the latter, is much longer, and then a few other observations. From last night's 27-18 lost Green Bay, the final score, you'll look back on it and you'll say, wasn't that bad. Yeah, it was. This was an absolute manhandling by the Packers of Washington in this game. And as I mentioned, a bit of an early season reality check as to where they are. And I think the biggest part of the reality is they have some issues up front on offense in particular. Now, that defense, you probably won't see anything like it until Philly, although there are other teams that'll be good defensively on the schedule. Got the Chargers in a few weeks. You got the Chiefs at Arrowhead. So we'll see. All right, what I liked, there were a couple of things. I'm being generous here, but I'll start with Deebo Samuel. He had a kickoff return of 50 yards. That was the biggest play of the night for the team. It was a really good return. Quinn was asked, I think by Nikki last week, about having Deebo back there and the risk. Again, the new kickoff really is treated by coaches as more of a line of scrimmage play than a return. So that's why you see running backs and offensive starters back there on returns. It was a really good return. He took another one out from the end zone. I said after the game on Sunday against the Giants, you should never, now with this rule, bringing the ball on touchbacks out to the 35-yard line, you should never bring it out. But I think he was trying to make a play because they just weren't doing enough offensively. 7 catches for 44 yards. That's nothing special, but he had a couple of really, really good plays after the catch. The 3rd and 10 on that drive when they were down 27-10 as they scored to make it 27-18. He had a really nice catch and a really good run, turning it upfield and really willing his way. He's excellent after the catch for the first down. And then the touchdown pass. Man, did Daniels get lit up on that one. My God, he got destroyed. But it was a good job getting it out quickly. Deebo caught it and found his way into the end zone with several people that could have kept him out of the end zone. So Deebo Samuel is on the list of things that I shouldn't say I liked, but it was tolerable last night. Tress Way, another great night. Punt coverage. Yeah, we'll talk about punt coverage. The Green Bay Packers had 3 punt returns for 1 total yard. Tress Way had 4 punts, 46.8 yards per punt, 3 of them inside the 20. How about the play Percy Butler made early in the game? He got flagged for unnecessary roughness. They picked up the flag. He didn't think the runner was down, which was obvious, and so they picked up the flag, which is exactly what they should have done. But, man, this team, going back to last year, take out the Dallas game at home last year, they cover kicks very well. It is a tone setter for them. It is part of what they want the organization to be. They want to be physical. They want to be tough. They do play hard, and they really play hard on special teams as a kick coverage unit. They gave up 1 decent kickoff return to the rookie from TCU, but their special teams coverage and their punter is a strength of the football team. I hope we don't have to mention that this high up on the list of good from games. I hope we don't have to do that too much this year, because that really feels like the olden days, when it was like, what was good from the game? Well, Tress Way was good. You know what else was good? Jalen Lane as a punt returner last night. Pretty good, job returning punts. There was a face mask on one of them, not on him, but at the line of scrimmage that added 15 yards of field position. But 3 punt returns, 50 yards total, 16.7 yards per punt return. That's pretty damn good. Good for him. He dropped another pass last night. I think that I can mention Terry and Zach Ertz on the list of things that were somewhat likable from last night. Looking for something to be positive about, they both had some really good contested catches, and Zach Ertz did a really nice job on the touchdown catch. That was actually a very well-designed play. You had the flow going to the right, and then Jaden comes back, and after Eckler's cleared out that side on a wheel route, Ertz is open. He makes a really good run after the catch to get it into the end zone. Terry had a catch in the game in which the ball was not well thrown. He batted it up in the air and pulled it down. He had a couple of really tightly contested catches. Remember, some of the reason, or at least, one of the reasons there is a lot of tightly contested catches is they're not getting separation. And last night was one of those nights. There wasn't a lot of separation. Terry and Ertz, all right, along with Deebo on a night in which the offense was not very good. I'll throw on this list of things that I liked. I'll throw the defense in the second half. Look, it was not a good defensive night by a long shot, but I thought that they decided to go down swinging a bit more in the second half with more pressures. I'd have to go back and look at the game to see what the difference in blitz rate in the second half versus the first half. It felt like they came with more pass rushers in the second half because they got carved up with no pass rush in the first half. And, after giving up in the first half drives of 96 and 92 yards, like the punt coverage team did their job. Tressaway and the punt coverage team did their job. And then Jordan Love just carved him up, 96-yard drive, 92-yard drive. He was 13 of 18 for 214 yards in the first half, didn't get sacked. In the second half, he was 6 of 13 for 78 yards and got sacked twice and pressured several other times that forced sort of throwaways. In fact, I think there was a throwaway from his own end zone in the third quarter that was very close to intentional grounding and a safety. They did not call it. Jordan Love was kind of looking around to see if they were going to call it. He was not outside of the pocket, I don't think. I'd have to go back and look at it again, but it was in the third quarter, 14-3, 17-3 at the time, and he got pressured. Miller was part of the pressure, immediate, and he did not, I don't think, get outside the pocket. And I thought that should have been at least really discussed by the officiating crew as to whether or not he was outside the pocket, because it was a clear throwaway with no receiver in the area. But I guess on the list of things that were tolerable, the defense played a better second half overall. Part of that could just be Green Bay understood the game was kind of in hand, don't take any risks. Green Bay missed a lot of stuff, they missed that deep shot to Golden where he got behind the defense. Could have been a much worse night statistically and otherwise on the scoreboard with the way they played. All right, let's get to the much longer list here, the things that were not good from the game. So I mentioned this in the open, but not hard to describe this game. They got dominated everywhere, specifically in the trenches, and they got bullied all night long. Green Bay's excellent, all right? We knew that coming in. Here's one thing that I said yesterday that came to fruition, and I thought, this is advantage Washington. They had two of their offensive linemen out. The guy Tom and the guy Banks both did not play. They were questionable. That was a big deal, but apparently it wasn't because the defense got shredded, especially in the first half. That was disappointing. And then on offense, it was hideous. Where to start? Connerly Jr. is young. And he's taking his rookie lumps right now. He might need a break with Wiley Jr. still on the roster. He's played some right tackle for us, and it hasn't always been terrible. I thought maybe he could have settled things down a little bit. I mean, Micah Parsons, but it wasn't just Parsons. Gary, Van Ness, everybody kind of took their shots at Connerly Jr. and the offensive line. They were just overwhelmed up front, period. The pressure was constant and quick. And again, those guys defensively for Green Bay were feasting from the jump. Dominated in the trenches, number one on the list of things that were not good last night. More specifically on the pass protection being a problem. Jaden Daniels last night was pressured more than in any other game he's played in the NFL. 4 sacks, 12 quarterback hits. The pressure numbers came in shortly after the game. I put on my notes during the game, does he have any time? The answer was no. Pressured on 46% of his dropbacks, the highest of his career so far in 22 games. And then, against zone coverage, there weren't people open. There weren't any. The coverage was outstanding behind, I think, primarily a 4-man rush. And there just weren't easy answers for the quarterback last night. And then they did a phenomenal job, clearly, in containing him and not letting him get out and make plays with his legs. And when he did, man, their speed defensively, wow. So, in the trenches, more specifically, pass protection was an absolute mess last night. That leads me to this. Again, talked about it, but I'll get into it in more detail here. I just didn't like what they continued to try to bang their head against the wall doing. Like, they couldn't protect. All eyes were on Jaden in that zone coverage, which made it harder, on him because nobody was getting open against that sticky zone coverage. Why not try to run the football more? Why not? Bill had this tremendous game as a first-time player last week. 10 carries, 82 yards. The score never really got out of hand, even though it felt like it was out of hand. Cliff never gave the run game a chance. Never gave it a chance. As I mentioned, the running backs in the game had 12 carries. That's it. There were 48 called pass plays, 42 pass attempts, and 12 runs by the running backs, Eckler and Bill. And he was 4 for 17, over 4 yards per carry. I thought he looked good on the 4 runs. It wasn't like they were running against, a prevent defense because the game was over. The game wasn't out of hand score-wise. The score allowed for a legitimate attempt to say, we're not protecting. Dropping back is not the way to go tonight. That's not going to be a good recipe for moving the football. I know what they were trying to do. They were trying against that zone, 4-man, rush. We can block it up, and Jaden can throw the ball. He'll be patient underneath, and we can make some plays after the catch. Didn't happen enough. Didn't happen. And then when the rush was getting there quickly, they shortened it up, quickened it up, and it's like, we got to throw slants. We got to get the ball out quickly. And those were covered. I just thought it was not a great night for Cliff, in my view. There are so many things we don't know about this, and maybe they thought, no, you don't understand. Bill's really good. We like him, but against this front, against these linebackers, it's not going to give us our answers. We've got a better chance with the quick stuff against their pressure that we can't protect against. But I don't know. The plan, to me, I think I said this already, it was a bit soft. I think in those situations when you're not going to be successful protecting, that the other team is just flat out better than your 5 that are protecting, and oh, by the way, the back end is good enough to cover up your receivers, you got to, I don't want to sound like Doc, although I have no problem sounding like Doc, but this was a manhood issue a little bit. Like, okay, we got to go at them now. We got to figure out how to run the football, to protect our quarterback, to protect our pass rush, to try to make them work a little bit harder. Again, maybe it wouldn't have worked. I would have liked a little bit more muscle. And I thought that Krosky Merritt deserved more than 4 carries. I'll tell you what's clear about their thought process on him in the game when they're throwing the football. They don't trust him yet in pass protection. That's for sure. They trust McNichols. They trust Eckler, but Eckler's not more likely than not going to be with us the rest of the year. I just didn't like the plan, man. Adjusting, and we always say, fans always say, make adjustments. Where were the adjustments? Sometimes that's probably easier for us to say than for them to do, especially on a short week. But I just would have liked to have seen JCM, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, Bill. I would have liked to have seen him get, another 4 carries to see if he could have gotten another 17 yards. And then it's like, all right, this might be one way to make it work. And then all of a sudden, the pass rush just can't pin their ears back. On the list of things I did not like, look, this was not a good game for Jaden Daniels. This game was not about him, clearly. This was not about him because the limitations that were around him were significant. But you have to say that he's done it before. when pass protection wasn't there, when the run game wasn't there. But he didn't do it last night. I think a big part of it was the Packers defense was just lights out exceptional, as they were Sunday against Detroit. And it may turn out that they're one of the best defensive teams in the league this year. They certainly have the personnel. But Jayden, in these first 2 games of 2025, he's not been super sharp throwing the football. The accuracy's been inconsistent. Again, last night, I think, you chalk it up to the pressure, my God. But we've seen him under pressure before. We've seen him take big hits in the pocket before, and he got hit last night a lot. But we've seen him deliver, in the midst of chaos. But he was not necessarily on target again for a second straight game. And then there were no real plays off schedule. We've come to expect, hey, if it's not there and nothing was there, it's okay. 5 will go make something happen. He didn't do it. I credit them, but he didn't do it, Also, he made another bad decision in the zone read game. It came early. It was the second drive of the game. Last week, last year I pointed this out several times. I'm like, I don't think he made the right read there. And then I had, his quarterback guru, Taylor Kelly, on the show, and he said, yeah, no, they've talked to him about some of those zone reads, that there have been a couple that he should have pulled, that he didn't pull, a couple he should have given, that he didn't give. We saw one in the Giant game last week early when he kept it, when he should have left it in the gut of, I think it was Eckler. Because the end, I think it was Burns, was playing the quarterback. Last night, the end crashed, and he left it in Eckler's gut, and it was a -1 yard play. He's obviously dual threat. He's obviously been in read option attacks before. That was one way to get the running game going last night, but he's got to make better decisions there, or more consistent. Look, more times than not, he makes the right call. But that would have been, 8, 9, 10 yards out of bounds. Instead, it was -1. Not enough from him, but again, he was not anywhere near the top of the list of the issues. The Packers were really good, and the Packers totally outclassed Jayden's supporting cast on offense. The 230 yards of total offense last night, the fewest of any in Jayden's 22 starts as an NFL quarterback. Here's another number I saw. The Packers blitzed Jayden 12 times in the game, and they did not let him scramble once. Not once. They held him to 3 completions on those 12 dropbacks. 3 with no scrambles on the blitz. That's unusual. He looked for it. You could see he looked for openings, and they closed down quickly. All right. I got more on this list of things that I didn't like, because we got to get to the defense, which was also outclassed last night. We'll do that, and then we'll take your calls at about 11:03. But if you want to start lining up the calls now, 301-230-0980, your reaction to Washington's loss last night at Lambeau. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.
All right, happy Friday, everybody, and that's pretty much the only good thing I have to say about the day. The Commanders, they fall to the Packers last night on Thursday Night Football by a score of 27-18. Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft, and the rest of the Packers offense had their way with Washington for most of the game. But the big story last night for Washington, the injury bug has arrived, and it has been brutal, with 7 players going down and only 2 able to return to the game. Austin Eckler, most notably with an Achilles injury. Noah Brown out with a groin. Dietrich Wise carted off with a quad injury. John Bates out with a groin. He did not return. Jonathan Jones with a hamstring. Trey Amos and Brandon Coleman did return to the game after their injuries. Former Wizards guard Malcolm Brogdon has signed a deal with the New York Knicks, entering his 10th NBA season, according to Shams Charania. The Nats, they fall to the Marlins by a score of 5-0. Mackenzie Gore with 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, giving up 2 earned runs and 2 walks. He gave up both runs early in in the first inning. Nats couldn't get the offense heated up, and that might be a DC problem. So, hey, the Nats got to get in line. Boys in red and white shift their folks to the Pittsburgh Pirates tonight. Brad Lord taking the stage versus Mitch Keller. First pitch at 6:45. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Den's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
All right, going through the game recap, the list of things that I didn't think were terrible from the game: Debo Samuel, the punt coverage, Tress Way, Jalen Lane is a punt returner. Terry and Ertz had some moments. The defense got a little bit more aggressive, and it wasn't as bad, I guess, in the second half. What I didn't like, they were dominated, up front on both sides of the ball. The pass protection last night was abysmal. There was nowhere to go with the ball. They were sitting on receivers in that zone coverage because they knew Jaden was going to have to get the ball out quickly because their pass rush with 4 dominated. I didn't think that they adjusted very well. I think this was not Cliff's best night, but this is one of those areas that's always dangerous to get into because we just don't know. But I would have loved to have seen them respond with running game and Bill, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. I would have liked to have seen them try to run the football. That helps out the pass rush. It keeps your quarterback from dropping back 48 times. And he had a little bit of success. I mean, it's a small sample size, 4 carries, 17 yards, but I kind of felt like they got bullied last night and that it was a bit soft overall. It was not a great night for Jaden Daniels, but he was far from the biggest issue. There was nothing for him other than to put the cape on again, which he didn't do last night. We've seen him do it many times when there hasn't been any pass protection or receivers haven't gotten separation or there's been no running game. But Green Bay didn't allow him to do it last night. All right, next on the list of things that I did not like, defense. Outclassed last night. Up front for sure, but definitely in the secondary. I mean, Lattimore, what an absolute horrific night for number 2, Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, they picked on him. They threw at him. They kept throwing at him. Not that they didn't throw at other guys. Look, Green Bay had 2 offensive linemen, starters, out. They don't have Christian Watson. You know, he's on PUP list. They lost Jaden Reed early in the game. And, you know, I mentioned this yesterday or during the week. They had 10 different receivers catch balls against the Lions, 8 in the first quarter. They spread it around well, but everybody seemed to get open against everybody that was trying to cover. Sandra Still, Harris, you know, Quan Martin, didn't matter. Trey Amos, you know, got beat a few times. He actually had the one decent play on the 4th and 3 that they went for, but really that was probably Jordan Love's worst throw. It was late and it was underthrown. People were open all night. I mean, Tucker Kraft, my God, it was easy pitch and catch for much of the night, especially in the first half I mentioned before, but Jordan Love, 13 of 18 in the first half for 214 yards, had a long touchdown to Reed called back by a penalty. The only thing that slowed them down, the only thing that stopped them from scoring a lot more points, really penalties. And then they missed the deep shot to Golden, you know, against where he ran by Quan Martin. They had so many chunk plays. I made the list here. They had 8 pass plays of 15 yards or more, 15 or more. They had a 57-yarder, a 37-yarder, a 23-yarder, and a lot of 15s, 17s, and 19s. They had 5 running plays of 9 yards or more, including 16 and 14-yard runs. Look, the defense wasn't horrendous against the run, but it wasn't great. You know, when Jacobs needed yards and needed to move the sticks, he did it. No takeaways again, 0 takeaways in 2 games. A game like last night's, you pretty much needed to come out +1, +2, probably, in hindsight, to have a chance. This is where, you know, I go back to the summer conversations. You got to be really careful about these summer conversations and these videos and these hyperbolic statements that come out of training camp, you know, in shells where they're not playing tackle football, or after preseason games where they barely play any tackle football, at least the starters do. Because the secondary, I think it's better. I think it's better on paper. I think Amos looks like he has a chance to be a good player. I think, you know, the discussion about Lattimore over the summer, my God, he looks sharp. This is a different guy. You just have to be careful when they haven't played anybody real in anything remotely resembling real. Real games matter. And then the week 1, it's like it's always a head fake usually, and the opponent had something to do with the defensive performance on Sunday against the Giants. Last night, they didn't play the Giants, and they got torched, and they had no pressure in the first half. And Jordan Love is borderline elite if you don't pressure him. Now, when you do pressure him, he's not nearly as good. They carved him up. I mean, 96 and 92-yard drives in the same half. Also on the list, more drops in this game. Noah Brown had a huge drop. I mean, I thought it was huge in the moment. I didn't realize they were going to be dominated the entire night the way they were. It was a 3rd and 9 in Green Bay territory. It was 7-0, and he got held coming out of his break, no call, but the ball was right there, and he's got to catch it, and he didn't. Jalen Lane had a drop. There were another 3 or 4 drops last night. Next on the list, I mean, what in God's name was going on at the end of the first half? Like, I'm like, look, it's 14-3. The field, I'm going to get into the field position here in a moment. It's 14-3. You take over at your own 43-yard line with 2 minutes and 2 seconds left. You got a chance after being throttled for the first 28 minutes of the first half. You got a chance to go down and make it 14-10, worst case 14-6, and get the ball to start the second half. These games are long. Things change. You know, they had been absolutely overwhelmed for 28 minutes, but it didn't mean that things couldn't change with a big play, with a touchdown, a big penalty. I can't believe that a Dan Quinn coach team, with what we've seen over the last, 21 games, including the playoff games, where they err consistently on the side of being super aggressive, and they went into a shell, man. They had no confidence that they were going to be able to get anything other than into field goal range, which was clearly the goal. A touchdown apparently was not in the cards or in their decision-making. I mean, hell, they added the 2-minute warning with a 2nd and 2 at the Green Bay 49. They ran the ball twice and just let the clock run. I knew once they ran it and they were letting the clock run, and then they had the opportunity, remember, on the Tunsil 5-yard false start. By the way, another false start for him. Actually, his first, but he led the league in false starts last year. And they had a chance to take a timeout to not have the 10-second runoff, but they didn't take the timeout. They allowed the 10-second runoff. And that was before a 2nd and 10 at the Green Bay 46-yard line. Really? I mean, are we really that sure that early in the game that we can't get into better field goal position or we can't score a touchdown? That was strange, but it speaks to they just didn't feel good about the great field position, 3 timeouts, 2 minutes and 2 seconds left, getting deep into Green Bay territory for a much easier field goal attempt, or trying to go score a touchdown and make it 14-10 going to the second half where they got the ball first. Then, you get the 4th and 4 and you send Matt Gay out there to kick a 58-yard field goal, 58 yards, and he misses it. And you give Green Bay the ball after that missed kick at their own 48 with 14 seconds to go. You give up a chunk throw to Wicks, and then an easy 8-9 yard run to Jacobs, and now they've got a 48-yard field goal attempt to make it 17-3, but McManus hit the left upright with that kick. So, they should have scored more. I don't care about the moment of, we're unsure about protecting. Let's at least, try. If you're trying to win the game, which they are, I'm not suggesting they're not, I'd love to know what they were thinking in terms of why this staff has been so aggressive in these situations when they have terrible field position. Why, with 2 minutes and 2 seconds from their own 43-yard line, they would essentially throw in the towel on a touchdown as a possibility. So that made the list, obviously, of the things I didn't like. Matt Gay, 1 of 3 on field goal attempts, all 3 of them from 50 and out, and this is where he struggled last year on longer field goals. In the NFL, in this day and age, sorry, but anything inside 55 yards, you got to make. Today's 52 and 50, 4-yarders are yesteryear's 42 and 44-yard field goals. You got to make those kicks. 58, okay, fine. But he's had an issue recently with longer field goals. They could have used them last night. Imagine it's 14-9 at halftime instead of 14-3. Would have made things maybe interesting. Lastly, on the things I didn't like list, do you know how much they dominated field position? Their average starting field position was their own 37-yard line. They had drives start at the 45, the 43, Green Bay's 44, the 50. They had 3 drives start at their own 35. The Packers started 3 times inside their own 10, and they wasted it all night long. Or Green Bay just locked them down despite the great field position. All right, phone lines are open. I've got a couple of other observations, and then I'll get to your calls next.
At the end of the half, you guys went for the field goal rather than trying to go for what was the reason?
Yeah, I thought that was the make line that we had for the end of the half, so we thought we were just at the right spot. And, coming back would give them a chance. They missed one, but if we could get it into that space, John, that's what we thought at the end of the half, going that direction, that would be the side.
You guys are really aggressive going for it. Sometimes in those situations, is it just kind of playing a game situation there, or just?
Yes. Yep. When you feel like you can make to the mark, then, you can disagree with the result, but the process to get there, we thought, we hit the marks that we wanted to.
That was a good follow-up question from John. When you start at your own 43, the other team's 41 shouldn't be the mark. With 2 minutes and 2 seconds left and 3 timeouts, you start from your own 43. The other team's 40 or 41 yard line, which is the range in which you want to get your kicker into, should not be the goal. Am I missing something there?
No,
Maybe he was missing it in sort of the explanation. And look, it's the post game and everybody's, emotional, certainly after an ass kicking like the one they took last night. But that was frustrating to me. But I also knew in the moment, based on the play calling and the lack of calling timeouts, they just were not confident. They were not confident in their ability to protect, and they didn't want to leave Green Bay with a lot of time. If they went 3 and out or they didn't get into field goal range. But the field goal, and apparently the Green Bay 40-yard line, so basically, 41 would have been the 58-yard kick. So basically they were in it for 16 yards of gain in 2 minutes. Yeah, you got to, I think, down 14-3, and I know you're getting the ball to start the second half, but the field position's great. You got all those timeouts. I know nothing's gone well for you, but the drive before was the drive that they got the field goal on. Jaden hit a pass to Terry He had a ball to Noah Brown that was completed, and they got into field goal range for the 51-yarder in that particular instance. So they were coming off a drive in which they actually had the most success offensively that they had all night. So that was super, super strange, super, super conservative. All right, before we get to your calls, and we're going to get to them in 2 minutes, I promise. A couple of other quick observations. I thought that there were missed calls both sides. You know, I mentioned the Jordan Love intentional grounding from the end zone. I think that was intentional grounding. I went back during one of the breaks last hour just to look at it. He's not outside the pocket, and he is throwing it away to nobody. That should have been a safety. Anyway, Jaden took a big shot to the head by number 58. It was the pass that he completed to Ertz early in the third quarter on a 3rd and 6. Pretty good throw low. Ertz pulled it in. There's a helmet to helmet. I mean, 58's looking like waiting to get flagged, and they didn't flag it. And Jaden doesn't complain at all about that stuff. He got hit a lot last night. And look, rolled his ankle late in game. That was a physical beatdown of our quarterback last night. Not only as, a scrambler, which didn't go very far, but really in the pocket as he unloaded balls, he was hit over and over again. Ben Sinnott had a catch last night, came into the game, I think, when Bates left the game. And what else did I have here? Yeah, I already mentioned Tunsil's false start. Penalties now in 2 games, Washington has, well, they only had 5 last night. A couple of them on defense, a couple of them on offense. Green Bay had the 10 penalties for 77 yards. Or some of those, by the way, let me just point out, some of those penalties were defensive forced penalties. They were. I think John Baptiste got held on a decent rush by their backup tight end. But overall, look, this one, they're going ahead and playing the other 15, but this was not the performance that we were looking for or anywhere near the result. They were absolutely taken to the woodshed last night in a bully-style way as well. That's the part of it for me that's just irking me a little bit. I would have liked to have seen, not that they didn't play hard, not that they backed down, not at all. It's that I would have liked to have seen offensively them try to take it to Green Bay with a little bit more of an attempt to run the football, because I thought maybe that would work. I mean, it probably wouldn't have. But all right, let's get to your calls at 301-230-0980. Let's start with our guy, Lap. Lap, go ahead. Kick it off for us.
Hey, what's up, Kevin? Just a bad
Hey,
game, man. You made some great points, man. I definitely think we should have ran the football. I thought Zach Ertz should have been involved in the game more, and I think we need to address the tight end position. I know we're using tight ends for, running plays and blocking and stuff, but if you supposedly have a good offensive line, I think the tight ends need to be used in the offense. If you look at 49ers, like, they would throw to the running back or the tight end if the plays break down. And I think Jaden needs a sure tight end, for the future of this team at some point. We need to address that. But Zach Ertz is still serviceable, and he can still play. Debo was a bright spot. I was glad to see that. Terry was good to get a little bit more catches, you know what I'm saying? But just the sense of urgency, man. Like, Jaden didn't even look like he wanted to be there. Dan Quinn, this is why I don't like Dan Quinn just over his years. I like him as a coach, but just when he plays Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur teams, man, he gets destroyed every time, man. We don't force no turnovers, and they don't seem like they ever have a plan. You know what I'm saying? He always gets torched with the Mike Shanahan tree guys. But it's just a sense of, in the defense, I mean, I don't even know what to really say about the defense. Lattimore looked like Josh Norman, and if he's going to play like that, bro, he got to go. We can't have that. Bobby Wagner cannot miss the tight end like that, man, and give up that big play. Just ridiculous, man. And, Green Bay had a short week just like we did, Kevin. I mean, we should not have been that unprepared. And then your point that you made about the first half, that was just terrible. you don't try to score. And this has happened in 2 games in the first half. We didn't try to get any points. No sense of urgency or nothing. We had plenty of time to score or kick a field goal in both games. You can't leave points out there on the table. And even if you came back when it was 10-17, you don't deserve to win. You know what I'm saying? Some late heroics because you're not even in the game, man. I mean, this is just
they
crazy.
tried
they
to
should have
score
blew
at
us
the end
out
of the
by,
first half against the Giants. They drove it all the way down there. They tried to score, and you ended up with the intentional grounding that ran the clock out. They didn't do what they didn't do in the Giant game what they did last night. They were super conservative last night.
Yeah, but it's still mismanagement because you could have saved that timeout later in the Giants game, and then
they burned a lot of timeouts in the opener.
You're going to try to kick a 58-yard field goal with a kicker that sucked last year from over 50. Man, come on, man. Like Dan Quinn got to get it together, and they need to use Luke McCaffrey more because he looked like the only one that was getting open yesterday. For that short period of time.
So a couple of things. Thanks for the call, Lap. Couple of things. Number one, your early portion of the call. Bates went out. He didn't play a lot of the game. He got hurt. That certainly could have been one of the reasons that they were fearful of trying to line it up and just run the football against Green Bay. Bates is their best blocker as a tight end. He's one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. They did not have him for the game. I'm looking through the snap count here. I want to just see how many snaps he played in the game. I'm going to guess it was like 20 out of the 70. 9 snaps out of the 69. So Bates went out even earlier than I thought. You had Coleman out, Chris Paul in the game. Coleman came back. So that's number one. The tight end, remember they used a second-round pick on a tight end in last year's draft, and hopefully Sinnott will prove them out. Now, God darn it, what was the other thing that you said that I wanted to respond to? Oh, you know what, Max? See if you can just go through, Quinn's career as a head coach and as a defensive coordinator and see what his record is actually. And it's not really the record. It's what his defenses did in the game against the Shanahan tree guys, because that has been discussed before. LaFleur is now 4-0 as a head coach against Quinn as either a head coach or a defensive coordinator. And he's had great success offensively against Quinn's teams. So the 49ers, and Kyle had success against the Cowboys. I don't know.
Google's AI is telling me, and take this with a grain of salt, Dan Quinn's Dallas Cowboys defense went 0-6 against the teams of the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, including Kyle Shanahan's 49ers and Matt LaFleur's Packers through January of 2024, losing all 6 of those matchups, including 3 playoff exits.
Yeah, because they lost to Green Bay and the 49ers twice in the postseason. The Cowboys did, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Johnny in Chicago. Johnny, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Kevin? How you doing this morning?
I'm well, Johnny.
Okay, man, look, they just got beat down on both sides of the ball. He didn't have time to throw. They didn't establish a running game. From the get-go, they
didn't try to do that.
This dude back. They didn't even try, Kevin. That's because I'm looking at the game, and I'm just saying, okay, you're not even trying to run a football. They dropped this. How many pass attempts did he have? Was it 47 or 48?
48 called passes, I think, in the game. 12 called runs to the running backs, yeah.
Yeah. Kevin, they play the Vegas Raiders next Sunday. Do you think they need to sit Josh Connolly Jr. and put Andrew Wilder?
Maybe.
They got Max Crosby coming next week, man.
Maybe. I was thinking it during the game last night. I'm like, they have an option, a veteran that's played that position.
Yeah.
And he's, it wasn't just last night. Last week, he took some lumps, which, by the way, is totally typical for a rookie right tackle. But here's the thing. We're trying to win this year. We're not trying to develop.
Yeah.
So I would have thought about Wiley for sure.
Yeah. And one more thing, Kevin, when you looked at that third quarter, then Jordan Love, was that intentional grounding? Because when I looked at
it. Yeah, that's what I said.
I'm like, he's looking around. he was looking around for a flag, and I'm like, wait a minute, they're
Yeah.
not going to throw the flag because he was not out of the bucket.
We didn't even see the referees sort of talk about it. I didn't see that. The cameras
Exactly.
didn't show that. But I went back and looked at that during a break last hour. He's definitely not outside the pocket. That should have been a
Exactly.
safety. Look, would it have mattered in the game? You never know.
No,
The NFL,
no,
these games
no,
are wacky.
no.
But Green Bay, would have gotten what they needed on offense and would have gotten the stops they needed on defense. When the game got to 17-10 miraculously, never felt like a 17-10 game. Just like last week, it didn't feel like a 14-6 game against the Giants in the fourth quarter. What did they do? They went right down the field, easy pitch and catch,
Right.
touchdown to Tucker Kraft, who was wide open all night. Their
All
receivers
day, all
were
day.
wide open all night. And when they weren't, they made really good plays.
Why didn't Washington, I'm going to let you go, why didn't Washington try to get Michael Parsons, man? I thought they were trying to
The
be
Cowboys
aggressive.
were never going to trade Parsons within the division. The
In
Eagles
division.
gave Dallas a better offer than Green Bay, according to the reports. And Washington, keep in mind, and I mentioned this yesterday, they're going to have to shell out $500 million in 2 years. You can't do that if you're paying Micah Parsons $47 million a year. Thanks, Johnny, for the call. Appreciate it, man. Let's go to Skip. Skip, go ahead.
Kevin, you have dissected the offense. So let me focus on the defense. So disappointing. Against a team that had two of their starting offensive linemen out of the game.
Right.
I was expecting at least a slugfest because I knew Green Bay's defense was good, but I was hoping our defense would show up. The defensive line, they started out pretty well. There was a big play. Quan Martin missed a tackle on the tight end.
He's really good.
That extended
He's
the
really
drive.
good. Tucker Kraft is, yeah.
He is, but it was a clear missed tackle, though. If he had tackles him there, that stops their first touchdown drive. But let me talk about the other defensive backs. Lattimore is a miss by Adam Peters. I can say that now. Looking forward to your, what do I know now? I know that right now, that's a miss. He's not going to get extended or a new contract.
Yeah.
That's a miss. What did we trade for him? All those draft picks. In fact, I think if Adam Peters had known that Torrey Amos was going to be available in the draft, he was going to pick him, he would have.
Yeah,
right.
she does not play for them. Trey Amos does, though.
Trey Amos, right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So Trey Amos, if Adam Peters knew that he was going to get Trey Amos, he would have never traded for Lattimore because he was basically useless last year. This year, I'm hoping he at least plays half decent, but he's not going to get a new contract. So that's a miss by Adam Peters. I think I can say that right now. And the defensive line, I was just expecting more from the defensive line. It started out pretty good, and the second half was good, but those drives, like you said, they did whatever they wanted. They ran the ball, and there was no pressure on Love in the first half.
There was in the second half, but none in the first half, it didn't seem like.
So that was the first half was a total disappointment defensively. And, I don't know. People like Paulie look really ridiculous. By the way, Paulie, my name is Skip from DC. I think I've been calling Kevin longer than you have. He tried to act like he didn't know me on another show. But anyway, that's all I got, Kevin.
now we're getting into sensitivity and feelings between callers. Come on, Skip. Everybody knows you, and it's good to hear from you.
Kevin, but he did call me out the other day, act like he didn't know me. I think I've been calling your show longer than he has. And his ridiculous take yesterday that the Commanders were going to, win big,
Well,
anyway.
I think a lot of people thought there was Paulie did pick them to win big. You're right. Yes, he did. He said, I think something like this is going to be a statement. Do you know how many? Seriously, are we going to audit each other's picks on these games? Because there's going to be a lot of embarrassing moments for all of us. I got to run. Skip, thanks. I got to run. Let me go. Everybody on hold, stay there. I promise we'll get to all of your calls. We'll leave phone lines open for the rest of the hour for you guys to weigh in. Ben's going to join us at 12. We'll get injury updates. And I do have a slew of smell test picks for the weekend, including 3 for tonight's college slate. There are a bunch of college games tonight. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. All of our football talk on the Team 980 is presented by Paramount Plus. Sylvester Stallone is back in the original hit series Tulsa King. This season, Dwight faces his most dangerous adversaries yet, forcing him to fight for everything he's built and to protect his empire. Stream the new season of Tulsa King on Sunday, September 21st, exclusively on Paramount Plus. Ben at 12 with the latest on the injuries. Dan Quinn is not talking today, I guess. I think that's planned on the Thursday. I don't know when his next presser will be, but in the mini-bye weeks, when you're playing Thursday night, I think we'll hear from him on Monday to get a sense of what they saw, after watching the tape. I actually enjoy that day after, in this case, probably on Monday, press conference when the coach has seen the game, not just been a part of it, because I think those guys all have much better answers after they've had a chance to watch the game on film afterwards. All right, 301-230-0980. Joe in Springfield. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. So I don't have much I have more didn't like, but I'm going to give the one like to Deebo Samuel. I mean, I'm not sure how much he's going to continue doing kickoff coverage, but the 2 times he did the kickoff coverage, especially the one at the beginning of the second half, that put us in good field position. It just shows that whatever he's going to catch the ball, run a reverse, or even do a kickoff shows his speed. And we'll see what happens here from here on out with that. The defensive side I didn't like, particularly Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, it's 2 games now. I don't know how many games he's played, but, man, I remember he was injured last year too. When is he going to be the chance when we had to be like, Marshawn, you're on the bench? Because it's like either he's given up on the play, he's allowing too much chunky yardage, or doing these interference calls. I mean, some of them are definitely callable for sure. But it's like, what are we doing with Marshawn Lattimore from here on out? The couple of side notes. One, what was that at the end of the first half with the clock? You had like a couple of timeouts, and you came away with just a field goal.
Yep.
We always try to game for it when it's like 4th and down. In this case, it was 4th and 4. And if you got the first down, you continue to go to the clock, try to get in the end zone. I mean, Matt Gay, definitely you got to take it for kickers during this mini bye week, Kevin, because if he's going to continue missing field goals like that, big one. And the final note, so many people on social media last night kept saying, well, the season's over. See you next year. We played 2
well,
games
welcome
days,
to,
guys.
overreaction
It's crazy.
Friday in this case. Yeah, I mean, look, our fan
Absolutely.
base hasn't had an opportunity in decades to get excited about a team before a season began. Legitimately justifiable excitement with high expectations. And last night against one of the teams thought to be an NFC championship contender, it was a beatdown, and it was a reality check in terms of how far Washington is from at least one team in the conference. But it's early in the season. Teams evolve. Things happen. This is still going to be a good nobody predicted 17-0, I don't think. And this was certainly one of those games that you looked at and said, short week, they've got home field, a chance. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie, go ahead.
Big guy, hell to the W, man.
What's up?
Listen, man. Last night I listened to Dan Quinn last year tell me about a physical identity. Well, last night, that whole theory went out the window. They brought a pocket knife to a gunfight. And that's what peed me off the most about it. The effort wasn't there, man. Like you said, I'm going to give you credit because I never thought I heard you say this, because I was saying it all last night. We were soft. No emotion. We wasn't flying around offensively or defensively. The scheme and the game plan on both sides of the ball sucked. I mean, we didn't show up to play a game. And that's what happens when you don't show up to play a game. I can deal with the losing, but where was the effort at, man?
I disagree with that part of it.
We ran away.
I disagree with that part of it.
We were not physical at all with that.
I agree with that part of it, but that's different than not giving effort. What I said is I wanted to see an attempt to go at him offensively with the run game. And to me, we were getting bullied all over the field, not because of a lack of effort, in my view, but because we just weren't as good and they were much better in the trenches. I didn't like the constant trying to drop back and throw. And I know it was quick game and they were sitting on routes. I would have tried at least to bully back with some run game.
Listen,
and
man,
that's where I
listen.
think it was a bit of a soft response.
We played on our heels. We
in
played
game.
on our heels the whole. We played on our heels the whole game, offensively and
No doubt,
and
but
defense, man.
that's different than
Just-
not giving effort.
Listen, to me, it's not. Because when you give effort, you move it. You're going 100 miles per hour and you're playing physical football. So we just got a different philosophy on that one, man. As far as Lattimore goes, Lattimore was getting torched. Mikey was getting torched too on that same little motion play. So it wasn't just one player. It was the whole schematics of it. They never switched it up. They waited till the fourth quarter to switch that motion up where they passed it on. And then, I mean, we was a day late and $1 short on this game, and that's on coaching, man. And this, like you said, this was a game where we were supposed to line up. At some point, we seen the speed out there. We seen how they was being physical. At some point, we should have put 2 tight ends in there and started running at them, and we didn't. You know,
Well, the best blocking tight end was out.
Man, I don't want to hear about the best blocking tight end, man. This is football. That's your job to go out there to block.
No, I'm just telling you. You said put the 2 tight ends in and run the football. I'm just pointing out that their best blocking tight end was out of the game. But I agree with you. I wanted to see them run the football. I realized that early in the game that they cannot protect.
We're on the road. You're on the road against a good team. You know what this team was. We was on the road against a good team, and we didn't show up for a fight last night.
Well, you didn't know what this team was. Yesterday, you didn't know what this team was.
Yesterday, I didn't know what this team was, but I thought I knew what my team was. Obviously, I don't know what my team was, and obviously, they didn't know what they was last night because our identity last night was of a soft football team. That was strict to me. That was on coaching philosophy. What you say, 40-something passes? You see
48 called pass plays, 12 rushing attempts by the running backs. I hated that too. Hated it. Especially when you knew you couldn't protect.
You see what happened to Jordan Love when he had pressure on him, right?
Yep.
He was kind of skittish back there.
Yep.
So how many times did we bring pressure? All right? Oh, Von Miller's old.
Second half, a lot more, it appeared. Yeah.
Von Miller's old. Chalk him up. He's done, right? I mean, that was atrocious last night, man. I'm really at loss for words because, like I said, I thought I knew what my team was. I thought my team was a physical football team, and last night that was soft.
They got bullied last night. There is no doubt about that. Totally agree. I don't think though that they came out with no effort. I disagree with that. But they got bullied by a flat-out, much better team last night.
One more thing.
One more.
I ain't the guy to sit here to ever blame the referees, but they missed a lot. Yo, the dude on that punt, the ball hit the guy's heel. All right, and we recovered the ball. They went into a TV timeout. They didn't even get that. We didn't throw the flag on that one.
Honestly, I don't even know what play you're talking about. I missed that.
It was a punt.
What play are you talking about?
It was a punt. Somewhere in the second quarter. We punted the ball. The ball hit the guy's heel. We recovered the ball, and then we went into a whole TV timeout. And it came right back, and it was nothing. Green Bay went right. Matter of fact, they went down the field. I think they scored on that drive. That pass to Heath on the sideline against Lattimore, that was clearly OPI. They didn't call that. But I look at it like this. It's almost like basketball. You know, if you're going to play soft, you ain't going to get no call. And that's how I took that last night, man. We were soft.
I'm going to go back and look for that heel thing. I don't know what yet.
Kingsbury come out here. Kingsbury keep coming out here with these soft-ass game plans, and he did that a lot last year. The only difference was Jaden was able to bail us out. I said that. A lot of stress last year. Man, Jaden's playing well despite Kingsbury. He's playing well beside. Don't tell me with the plays he divides up and this and all this. He's a soft offensive coordinator. Period. Hell to the W.
Paulie getting it out today. I agree with a lot of what you said. Specific to last night. I got to go. You said one more, and I gave you one more. Let's go to Kevin in Arlington. Kevin, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. Thank you for taking my call. I'm going to be more big picture than game take. I guess game take, it's true that LaFleur and the Shanahan Tree boys, they play chess, and Joe Witt plays checkers. Joe Witt is the only coach on the team I have serious reservations about. And I'll just put it at that.
Yep.
And on fourth down, we got so used to, we don't punt and we go for it. And we have a kicker who can't make 50-yard. I mean, I was stunned he made one, but I don't know what they're thinking. We again don't have a kicker, and it is what it is. So, but big picture, Kevin, and we texted about this last night. And it's not just Quinn, but it's Club Med in August at Ashburn, and we're not ready. Especially
what's Club Med in every training camp, with the exception of a couple?
Kevin,
it's the way that NFL teams do it. Sean
Kevin,
McVay doesn't have any starter play anything.
Kevin, I said it's elsewhere, but we can't seem to be able to get going and play in our game. The Ravens don't have Club Med. The Harbaugh brothers, I guess, I like a Harbaugh type coach. I'm just going to say it, and they don't have Club Med camps. They don't.
I like Quinn.
Right,
Look,
no, I mean,
one game's not changing my opinion of Dan
They're
Quinn.
not ready to play, Kevin. They're not ready to play NFL football against the best teams.
Okay. Well, they went into Detroit last year in the playoffs and
Kevin,
hung 45 on the one seed.
I'm talking about in September.
Oh, okay.
We were lousy until we went against a Bengals team that didn't have a defense, and we were wonderful offensively last year. And, look, there's more to this than being talked about by the media. Is we're not ready. I mean, Doc Walker's been on it, and it's not a manhood issue so much as we're not ready to play tackle football in September. I think it's a problem. But I don't want to stay on that point. The last couple points I want to make, and again, this is like looking at Earth from space. The age of the roster is due to two main facts. We've got Cosme, Bates, and Martin from the last 4 years of the last regime. Okay, we were left with nothing. And so we also immediately won. And so we're picking at the end of the draft last spring. And you know what? Nobody's talking about, we're talking about now about the Lattimore miss. But what about the Sinnott miss? And what about the McCaffrey miss? And where's the ghost of Jordan McGee? And, I'm worried. And plus, we're having to trade draft picks to get Debo, to get Tunsil. So we're not getting the infusion of youth we need. And guess what? Maybe he's going Club Med in August because he knows how old the roster is and he wants to preserve it. Well, look, if you're not ready to play tackle football, what happens? You get hurt. We lost Wise, our only true edge setter on the defensive end, for the year. He's gone. And we lost Eckler, no doubt, for the year. And, that's what happens with old teams. So big picture, I believe in the regime. I believe in the coaching staff. I have questions about width, but that's about it. But we're not ready to compete for a Super Bowl yet. I think that came crashing down on me. We're players away. The youngest team in the league schooled us last night because they have players everywhere. Yeah. And they had a thing going, just like Baltimore's had a thing going for years and years and years.
Kev, I've known you forever, and you are very emotional in game, just so you know. Very, very, very quick to declare something, and I think you're doing that right now. I think it's way too early on some of the draft choices you talked about. I also think that this team not only is capable, but they were 60 minutes away last year against a much better team, and maybe Green Bay and Philadelphia are just much better teams.
They are,
but nothing about last night.
Above us, Kevin. We're not in their league. We're not in Philadelphia.
We certainly were not in Philadelphia's league last year when it mattered, and Green Bay last night, no. And the early portion of the season, you may be right about that. Maybe there is a better way to be prepared early in the season, but a lot of teams do it the same way. I got to get to a break, Kev. Thanks as always. Jason, Billy, Bay, Mark, Frank, Ian, Steven, stay on hold. We'll keep taking calls, 301-230-0980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980. Don't forget, you can stream us on the team980.com, and you can watch us on our Team 980 YouTube channel. Please, when you get there, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button at our Team 980 YouTube channel.
All right. Happy Friday, everybody. That's the only good thing I will have to say about today. The Commanders, they fall to the Packers last night on Thursday Night Football by a score of 27-18. Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft and the rest of the Packers offense had their way with Washington for most of the game. But the big story last night for the Commanders, the injury bug. It has arrived, and it is brutal, with 7 players going down and only 2 able to return to the game. Running back Austin Eckler went down with a non-contact Achilles injury. He may be done for the season. Noah Brown did not return with a groin injury. Dietrich Wise carted off with a quad injury. John Bates left with a groin strain. Jonathan Jones had a hamstring injury. Trey Amos and Brandon Coleman did return to the game from their injuries. Former Wizards guard Malcolm Brogdon has signed a deal with the New York Knicks, entering his 10th NBA season, according to Shams Charania and the Nats. They fall to the Marlins by a score of 5-0. Mackenzie Gore, with 5 innings pitched, gave up 4 hits and 2 earned runs and 2 walks, giving up both runs early in the first. The Nats couldn't really get the offense heated up. That might be a DC issue, looking to get in line. The boys in red and white will shift their focus to the Pittsburgh Pirates this evening. Brad Lord's taking the stage versus Mitch Keller. First pitch at 6:45. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Den's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
From Raymond, Kevin, don't you think that they didn't run the ball because of the Bates injury and they couldn't go 12 personnel? Yes, I said that. I think that had something to do with it, no doubt. But there wasn't much of a thought, I think, even going into this game at all, that they were going to be able to run the football. And it's not that I disagree. I just would have liked to have seen it been given another chance. Like if you had to bring in another lineman, I know Coleman was out, Paul came back in, but then Coleman came back. You got to have an answer, don't you? When you lose a Bates, he's a very difficult replacement. I understand that. But you had Sinnott up. I'm looking at snap counts right now. He played 3 offensive snaps. Bates played 9. So they did not run much 12 personnel after Bates went out. And they weren't, trying to run the football. And that, unfortunately, to me, last night would have been the one thing, if they had tried it and done it successfully, it would have nullified to a certain degree the biggest mismatch last night, which was Green Bay's defense against Washington's offense up front. They couldn't protect. It was immediate pressure. It was effective pressure. And it was with more often than not 4 rushers with 7 back in coverage sitting on the quick stuff because they knew the ball was going to have to come out quickly last night. Not quick, but quickly last night. Adverb follows verb. Let's go to Frank in Charlotte. Frank, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon or good morning, Kevin. Yeah, I'm gonna stick to my 5-12 record. I know we had that prediction a couple weeks ago.
You had 5-12. I do remember, Frank. Yeah.
You jumped all on me. You said you're out of your mind. So
yeah, right.
I think this game last night.
I think you're still out of your mind, by the way.
That. Yeah, but I think this game validated it a little bit. And what I did like, the one thing I did like last night was Al Michaels. He said on national TV, he actually called out Lattimore. He said Lattimore, since he's been with the Commanders, has had 8 holding calls. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. And for a guy that you gave up all that draft capital for. And so that's the one thing I did like. He did call it out. But what I didn't like is, of course, Brown. Brown has brick hands, of course. The D-line was awful. The O-line was awful. The play call was awful on both sides. Of course, Lattimore was awful. B. Wags, nobody's really talking about him. He's a phone booth guy on the goal line that really can't move laterally anymore. And that's why that tight end was
I don't know. Bobby Wagner, to me, every time I watch him, even on a night like last night, Bobby Wagner is still the smartest and the highest effort guy out there. I mean, I have no idea what I don't think anybody graded out particularly high in this game, but I feel very comfortable with Wagner out there. Me personally, watching them defensively, because I think without him, they'd really be up, creek.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right, because the other two are still learning. But Allegretti and Biadasz, I think I found his name, Biadasz. They were on skates all night. I mean, my God, especially Allegretti. He was getting pushed back into Jaden's lap so much, it was unbelievable. But I think there's a bigger issue, and you're probably going to just jump all on me about this. I think this goes back to the 2024 draft. The second, besides Jaden, obviously that was the obvious one. But those second-round picks, besides Mikey, I really do believe those were misses. You selected Jazon Newton at 36, an undersized 3 technique, who can't even break the starting lineup. You played him so much extensively in the 3rd game of the preseason because you wanted to see more from him. So I believe that's a huge.
That's a good point, by the way. I forgot about the 3rd preseason game. And, last week I thought he'd play more. He played more than I thought. Last night I thought he'd play more. I'm looking through his snap counts to see.
He can't even break the starting lineup.
Newton played 24% of the snaps last night. 16 snaps. Yep. Look, you know me. I think it's way too early to judge a draft after what is now 23 games, two regular season games into year 2. They obviously got the quarterback right. They got a guard that can legitimately start in Coleman. And they got a really good, I think, DB, certainly maybe more of a slot than an outside in Sanders still. Last night's a tough night, man, for everybody, because it wasn't a loss. It was a total annihilation, not on the scoreboard, but everywhere when you watch the game. You saw a team that was exceptional play, I think, a good team, but there's a big gap right now as we speak between the Packers and Washington. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it. Let's go to Ian. Ian, go ahead.
Kevin, I think there's so much to take away from that game. So with the caveats, the Kevin caveats of it's a week-to-week league, it's a short week, they're on the road. We understand all that, and the first 4 weeks are the de facto preseason. But my overall takeaways are they were out-coached. They have injury-prone players who are getting injured. That shouldn't be surprising that Austin Eckler is now out. It is organizational arrogance and stupidity to have a second-year quarterback, I don't care how good, play one series and throw the ball 0 times in the preseason. Their sloppiness is a total reflection of the lack of preparation in preseason. The kicker, can our GM find a kicker? I don't think so. Marshawn Lattimore looks like a total bust. It's not an injury. He is a penalty, whether holding, personal foul, immaturity, he's a constant penalty. And if you think it's too early to judge Sennett, McCaffrey, and Johnny Newton, you can't use the process the other way and say, we found our quarterback. Because if it's too early to say,
you can.
Kevin, it's
after the season he had last year, you can. That we can make an exception for that one. Come on, use your critical thought skills. You can make an exception for that one. But by the way, you said something else. What did you say right before that? About the
Lattimore.
About Lattimore. Here's what I think we need to learn, because I don't know that we have the answer to this. I still, and Kevin said this, Kevin in Arlington, I'm still skeptical about what they're doing scheme-wise and coaching-wise. I think the talent is better than the execution and the results last year and, last night, because obviously the Giants were, completely inept. So I'm not telling you that I think Marshawn Lattimore can still be a great corner. Obviously, there's no evidence of that based on his on-field performance, but I just wonder if the scheme is the right fit and whether or not they're doing the right things. I'm not capable of answering that. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm capable of trying to find out the answer. But they were completely last night outwitted, it would have seemed, because of just the nature of how wide open everybody was.
So if you're going to go with that angle on Lattimore and say it's a scheme issue, like your previous caller said.
I didn't say it was. I said I'm considering that the scheme and the defensive coaching is a part of what we've been talking about going back to last year as it relates to the defense. That's what I'm saying.
But okay, fine. But then, as your previous caller said, he's 0-6 against these coaches. So we have a large sample size to say his scheme isn't working against any of the Shanahan coaching tree.
Right.
So, that's not changing. Dan Quinn, we saw the playoff game against the Packers. We've seen him against these teams before. So unless there's going to be a huge brain change and philosophy change, that's not changing. And again, it's not scheme when you're getting caught for holding every time. It's not scheme when you mentally lose it against Mike Evans. That has nothing to do with.
I agree with that.
Has to do with
I agree with that. I don't like that he's gotten some of those, what I would call, not well thought out penalties. By the way, Zach Robinson, who is the OC in Atlanta for Raheem Morris, that is going to be a similar style in 2 weeks. You get Chip Kelly as the OC, right? That's not the same. I'm just looking down the list to see how many of those guys are on the schedule. I mean, obviously Miami, and Madrid down the road, Minnesota. Yeah. There are more opportunities against, the Shanahan tree coaches. Yeah.
And like everyone said, we play legit quarterbacks now. Week 1, not a NFL quarterback, you get a win. Week 2, an NFL quarterback, you lose. And
do you consider Geno Smith a pretty good quarterback? Because that's who's coming in next Sunday.
I would say he's medium. I think Washington wins that game. I think this is a 9-8 team. I think they get that win. And again, when you're playing better teams, I can't get over the fact that they played Jaden Daniels for one series. When Joe Burrow played more, Lamar Jackson played more.
You've made that point. And 80% of the teams do the same things with their starters regardless of age. All right, I got to move on. All of you on hold, stay there. We're going to bring Ben on next. You don't have to stay there. You can hang up and call back. We will get back to some calls. I don't want to leave all you guys hanging who have been on hold, but we got to get to Ben next. We'll take some calls. I've got the smell test next hour. We'll take a quick look at the rest of the NFL card. We still have a lot to accomplish over the last hour. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. (11-5-1) through the first 2 weeks. I've got like 14 picks for the weekend coming up in about 45 minutes, something like that. Ben Standig is with us, as he is every Monday and Friday. He's our show's Commanders Insider. Ben has a stack column, Last Man Standing, I would urge you to subscribe. He's also got a podcast called Last Man Standing. You can follow him on X, on Twitter, at Ben Standig. I'm actually just reading your Twitter timeline, some interesting Marshawn Lattimore comments after the game that I had not seen. We will get to those here in a moment, but let's do what we do every Monday, and in this case, Friday after a game. I'll let you have the floor and tell me what your big takeaways were from last night's 27-18 loss at Lambeau.
Yeah, look, I mean, in terms, obviously, it was a terrible game in basically every facet. I asked a couple people, what was one positive you could give me? And people said, well, like their coverage on kicks and punts. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I threw that out. That was good.
Okay. So there's that. So typically, this is where we focus on the players, and obviously there's a lot to discuss, but I kind of want to talk about the coaching and the personnel here for a second. Look, I never would ever say, I'm always hesitant to question coaching because they know way more than I do, and I would hope anybody listening to this would feel the same way. That said, Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt seem to be outcoached significantly yesterday on the offensive side. Boy, I mean, they just could not get any receivers open. I know Green Bay has a tremendous defense, no argument with there, but you had the top 5 scoring offense last year. This is the whole point of this thing, is to be super creative, and they just didn't seem to have anything to throw at Green Bay that Green Bay was not anticipating. And that was, just the fact that they couldn't even get Jaden to run at all is shocking, just because that's seemingly the easiest thing to do is to get that going. That didn't happen. I didn't love the fact that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt didn't even touch the ball until midway through the second quarter. Again, not saying he's going to the Pro Bowl, but just in terms of what he does, his ability to make guys miss, you would think that kind of quickness and speed would be something you'd want to throw out there against that Green Bay defense rather than with the more plodding Austin Eckler. But okay. Then on the other side of the ball, someone just texted me from another team like 20 minutes ago. It's like, have they ever seen a tight end before? Like it was the way Green Bay was getting their tight ends open. And it was a game where, if Jordan, we can say every game, if the quarterback just, makes this throw, things could happen. It seemed like Green Bay had a guy wide open like every play.
Every play.
Every play. So I don't know what was going on there in terms of the scheme. We talked to some of the players after the game, and of course, hey, we got to be execute better, be on the same page, these types of things. I haven't watched the all 22 yet, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But
I don't think people are going to be that open for us, and I think a lot of people are going to be open from them when we watch the all 22. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's what I tweeted last night during the game. I was like, I don't know. Maybe the all 22 shows different. I'm not seeing anybody open for Jaden, and then so the other side, they were completely open. So it really felt like this was, to me, again, the players are the one playing, but it felt like they lost this game on a lot of levels on the coaching side of things. But then let me also then shift to the personnel. Now, when we talk about this team, like from a starting lineup perspective, when healthy, you can easily look at this and say, boy, they've got Jaden, they've got Terry, they improved the defensive line, the cornerback room could be a significant upgrade or whatever. The issue that I have in so many places is the depth. And what's interesting about the 4 guys who were ruled out, Austin Eckler and Dietrich Wise, it looks like both of them probably season-ending injuries. They have not officially said anything. And then you had John Bates and Noah Brown. I don't know exactly their deal, but I don't think it's that serious, but we'll see. What's interesting about all 4 of those guys is there is not a replacement on the team for any of them to do what they do. There is no other blocking tight end on this team besides John Bates. Noah Brown is the big receiver. Dietrich Wise, the whole point was that they were making the line bigger, right? Cool.
Yep.
If you take Dietrich Wise out, there is nobody else to put in. You can't just move a tackle over. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, whatever he is, he's 20 pounds lighter than Dietrich Wise. And with Eckler, again, Bill is a bit of an unknown, but in theory, they don't have a guy who's got his ability, certainly not his talent as a pass catcher, his ability to play all 3 downs. That doesn't exist. Jeremy McNichols can do it somewhat, but with a much lower ceiling. So it's not just that they've lost potentially 2 guys for the year and 4 guys perhaps for some bit of time.
they would have to, in theory, in my view, change the scheme, not just change personnel to be as effective as they want. So, again, this is still only year 2 of the roster fixer-upper recalibration, whatever you want to say, and they still lack a lot of depth. This is why they have a lot older roster, because they had to go out and sign guys who could at least play now, but that's not the long-term answer. So, again, I don't want to overly panic. It is only the one game. They're 1-1, a couple winnable games coming up, but some of the reasons why they lost last night were pretty concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I would everything you said, I've pretty much already said. I would just add to that Green Bay just is much better right now, overall personnel. And to add to your coaching thing, and this is what I wanted to get to because I read this during the commercial break leading up to you. There's some very interesting comments from Marshawn Lattimore, and I'll let you talk about them. But I had just said to a caller, I think it was Ian, that Lattimore was terrible last night. They picked on him. They threw at him, the penalties, and he's not been good since they traded for him. But I also, in the back of my mind, and I said, I just wonder how much of what's happened defensively going back to last year and then last night is scheme and coaching related. I don't know that I have the answer to that. I was suspicious that it was potentially part of the problem last year. And it sounds like Marshawn Lattimore thinks it may have been part of the problem last night. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, so I just say, hey, what was the challenge dealing with Green Bay? And he looked at me with challenge. What do you mean? I'm like, well, why were they so successful? He's like, well, it wasn't that complicated. We're a press corner team. The way to counter a press team is you would send guys in motion. That way, the defenders are not able to get their hands on the guy cleanly coming off the line. And then, if they're running man, you run a bunch of man beaters at them, and that's how you do it. He's like, this is just how football is. It's not that complicated. But the inference is that you make a move, they make a move. What's the counter move? And like I said before, it just felt like there wasn't a counter move from Washington's defense. And look, as you said, Lattimore had a rough night. I also asked him, what do you think about those penalties? He said he thought they were, bad calls. I don't know. I watched the replays. Seemed like he was holding a guy a couple times, so I don't know what to say about that. But it definitely felt. And look, it wasn't just him. Sanders still was having a rough night. Whoever was guarding the tight end, there was no answer there. So look, I think last year in general, I gave Joe Witt a bit of a pass because, again, first year together, the defense in particular had a lot of random parts. The offense did too, but the offense had number 5. Okay, so this year, the whole point was, okay, now you've got Lattimore, now you got Trey Amos. You can have 2 guys who can press corner. You can send more guys at the pass rusher. Jordan Love had a pretty clean pocket, felt like most of the night. So, yeah, nothing was working. And, it is interesting. Again, they know way more than me. But for Green Bay just to seemingly repeat over and over again what they were doing, it kind of falls in line with what he's saying, that it's about adjustments. And we did our thing, they did a counter, and then that was kind of it.
So on the other side of the ball, where it was a massive struggle, and to your point, and I think, I felt the same way, it's like they have had issues protecting, they've had issues running the football, but 5 typically bailed them out last year, and there was no bailout last night. The pressure was, overwhelming. It was the most pressure he's faced in any game of his career. And, I've talked about this morning, I would have liked to have seen them give Krosky Merritt more carries. I don't know if that would have worked because they were manhandled up front, but it seemed like there was no chance of them protecting. Receivers could not get open, and I would have liked to have seen them punch back by trying to run the rookie who played well last week. And by the way, in his 4 carries, I know it's a very small sample size, actually gave him something that actually looked like forward progress. 17 yards, 4 carries, over 4 yards per carry. And that was not part of any idea in terms of adjusting. It could have been because Bates was gone, But to your point, you gotta have somebody there when you lose players so that you can counter that way. Were you guys talking about just the idea of why they dropped him back 48 times and the running backs had 12 carries in a game in which the score never got out of control miraculously?
Yeah, it did feel like when John Bates went out that they did just sort of go 3 receiver sets kind of the whole way. I think I was surprised to see that Ben Sinnott only played 3 snaps even after Bates went out of the game very early. That's another indication of that they don't have a replacement for Bates, and they probably felt that, maybe they would have a better chance of putting the ball in Jaden's hand and having him run versus trying to block some of these guys on the ground. But, look, again, what was the entire point of trading Brian Robinson? It was that they wanted more playmaking out of the backfield, and that's what Bill seems to give them. And then they proceed to not give him the ball. It feels like this year, maybe it feels more this year than last year, as I recall, that they're doing like Eckler goes in for X amount of series, then the next running back comes in, as opposed to more mixing and matching within a series. And I would have liked to have seen that, because again, if you're having this Green Bay may have the best defense in the league, and maybe substantially. I mean, we'll find out over time. But the one thing we know is they're young, they're athletic, they're quick. Counter that with the young, athletic, quick guy, not the more, plodding pass catcher. I mean, obviously Eckler is good, and it's a tough break for him and his career. But yeah, I didn't get that either. And like you said, I mean, when they scored the Ertz touchdown and they're only down 7, I'm like, there's no way they're going to win this game, right? I mean, how can they be only down 7 points? There was definitely, you didn't have to abandon the run if they wanted to. Look, I also get that, their heads just might have been swimming. Nothing was working. But yeah, it did feel like when Bates went out, they just sort of stopped thinking about the run, even though, Bill, I mean, look, even, Debo, did he run last night? I don't remember. I don't think so. Did he?
No.
No. So, right. So
did he
again,
get 1 carry on a penalty play? I forget.
Maybe he's not in the box score, so they didn't use him either in that way. Which is like, well, wait a minute. Again, isn't this the point of having him? Last week he gets a 19-yard touchdown. We saw, so that would be why not do that? I don't know. It felt like they just kind of got away from what I would have assumed they would be doing more.
Well, one thing is for sure, they don't trust Krosky Merritt, which is not unusual for a rookie running back in pass pro. Sure. That is what they trust McNichols and Eckler with. I'm pulling up right now the snap counts because McNichols
I think Bill
was
only
in there
had like
a lot
11.
more.
Bill only had like 11.
15 snaps for Bill, 16 for McNichols. So, when they decided that they weren't going to try to counter by trying to run the football with Krosky Merritt, he basically was out of the game. I'm assuming for a lot of it, because they trust McNichols more as a pass pro guy. Ben, at the end of the game, Jaden rolled an ankle, and I'm just wondering if there was any talk of his ankle injury after the game in the locker room. If you think that this could be one of those, we get to next week and he's on the injury report.
Yeah. So he was asked how his physical health was, and he just said 2-word answer: I'm good. That said, when he walked into the media room, he definitely was walking with a limp. Now, again, a limp could be all kinds of things, but he definitely wasn't walking cleanly. He got hit, a bunch in the game, but also, late in the game, took some bigger shots, got rolled up on, it looked like on one time. So, if you told me he's on the injury report this week, I won't be stunned at all. It doesn't mean it's anything significant, but just, he looked like he was taking a beating as well. So, I think that's something else to monitor for sure. And it's really just nothing. There's almost nothing positive to discuss. And when we can't even talk positively about 5, boy, it's really going wrong. And that's the thing, right? It's like last week it was like, okay, he was fine, but some of the throws were a little bit off. This time it was like, this looked like more confusion back there, and it's way too early in the year to say, has the league figured him out? Is this the case of the defenses knowing how to adjust to what he did last year? I'm not going there, But in 2 games, it does not look like a guy who has progressed, and the offense has not progressed. So what do we do? And the other thing was crazy was going back to the receivers. What you saw in terms of nobody being open was what we saw all training camp, except in training camp it was Chris Moore and Luke McCaffrey running passes, not Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown. So they just couldn't get anything open regardless. And again, I put most of that training camp blame on the receivers, but it's looking like the same thing. So, is that more about scheme, or is that more about Jaden being off for whatever the reason? So, yeah, it's a little concerning.
Yeah, last night was completely different than Sunday against the Giants. I mean, they didn't score a lot of points against the Giants, but you chalk that up to all the penalties, the drop passes. They moved the football. They were well over 400 yards. I forget what the number was. Last night, they were completely bottled up. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed, other than the Philly game on Thursday night last year, to find a game that resembles this one. Maybe the Dallas first half, but in the season finale when a lot of starters weren't playing. Last night was a major outlier. I'm not going to get worked up over it. I think Jaden was far from the issue. They got completely bullied up front. The pass protection was non-existent, and receivers couldn't get open. It certainly appeared that way. We'll see. Talking, of course, to Ben Standig, a friend of mine texted me, why wasn't Chris Rodriguez up last night? Well, he wasn't up for the opener, and they probably thought they could stretch him out and make him defend the whole field and 4, which they never were able to do last night. They couldn't block 4. But maybe, Rodriguez now with Eckler out might, even though he's not the Eckler replacement, it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the backfield. I think McNichols is going to be the Eckler replacement. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
not early
right.
Downs. Bill, early downs. I'm talking about more change of pace, pass downs.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what happened last year when Eckler missed those games with a concussion. And everything was flowing so well last year that McNichols had some good moments as well, despite, to that point, a career of being, a fill-in at best, but at times last year looked pretty solid. He just doesn't have the wiggle, the pass catching, the upside plays that Eckler does. But yeah, well, look, with Rodriguez presumably active, maybe they can lean back more into the run because he's, the Brian Robinson tough yardage guy replacement. Maybe that's something that Cliff, despite obviously they were cool with trading Robinson, maybe that's something that's been missing from the attack, that they haven't had that guy. Bill is can run through the holes, but he's not gonna bully guys. He's bouncing around and running past them. So maybe Rodriguez gives us something. But yeah, look, I mean, like I said before, they don't have anybody to easily replace Eckler. And I'm not naive. You can't, even with a 53-player roster and a practice squad, you can't realistically have a carbon copy backup skill set wise for every player. But they don't have a lot. I mean, we're not even talking about the receiver depth, which is something we talked about all summer. Like, what happens if Noah Brown gets hurt? Oh, wait, Noah Brown got hurt. Again, I don't know how bad it is, but unfortunately, it's not surprising. So, and linebacker Bobby behind Wagner and Luvu. Jordan McGee's barely played in 2 games. The other guys have been inactive. So, yeah, they are thin at a lot of different spots, and unfortunately, it looks like that some of the spots where they had injuries last night are where they're vulnerable with depth. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, again, I think Rodriguez could be interesting, but he's definitely not the Eckler replacement.
Look, bottom line is, and I called this a bit of a reality check for early season, they're nowhere near at least one team in the NFC. We know that after last night, but things change, teams evolve, long seasons. I think the biggest concern you've identified, which is very intuitive, the injuries can become a real issue on this team because the lack of quality depth, which a lot of teams have issues with, but this team has it for sure, could really end up hurting them. Hopefully 5 will be able to bail them out of on nights or days like last night. But that team didn't allow them to do it. That's for sure. What else?
Just remember how, like, last year going into the year, our basic view was whatever their record's going to be, it's all optimism if Jaden Daniels looks the part. well, obviously he did from the jump, and then they turned out to be a winning team. It is that they won 12 games and made the NFC Championship game, I really do think has completely skewed the reality of what this team is. Because of 5, their floor is higher, but the overall talent is still a work in progress, as you would expect for a team in year 2 coming in with the previous draft classes being terrible, as we've discussed over and over again. And, so they still have to, like Adam Peters is still having to figure out the roster. I think some of the moves for these vets was just about getting them back to even, relatively speaking, to their opponent. So if we view this as, hey, as long as Jaden, whatever this little blip is here, as long as he's fine, makes all the plays over the course of the year, sure, you don't want them to regress as a team. But the point is, you have him, you have a chance. That, to me, is where I think maybe I have to recalibrate my own head. How is he doing? What's going on there? Fix that. And then the rest, they're just going to have to figure out, not just this year, but over time.
Well, here's one thing they don't have to figure out: their punt coverage. It was outstanding last night, as it's been really for the last 22 games under this regime. Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, man. See ya.
Ben Standing, everybody. Phone lines open. If you're on, stay there. I'll give you a chance. We'll finish up the show with my smell test picks in about 20 minutes or so. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Yeah, I was thinking about the Chris Rodriguez suggestion. I mean, it would have been – I mean, I wanted to see Bill get carries last night. They clearly, when Bates left the game, that was not an adjustment that they wanted to make. And I would guarantee you they would tell us, yes, we would have liked to have run the football more, but when we lost Bates, and by the way, we lost Coleman, even though he came back in, we didn't feel comfortable doing that. So they ended up being in, 11 personnel a lot of the night, and not in two tight ends, and giving Krosky Merritt a bunch of carries to see if that would have worked. Because I think the frustration for me watching the game last night, I know I've already said this a dozen times, but they could not protect and they couldn't get anybody open. So when you can't protect and you can't get anybody open, dropping back or calling 48 pass plays to just 12 for your running backs when the game isn't out of reach. You're not down 3 scores. You're not down double digits until late. It just seems, I know they were down 14-3, but the game was never out of control score-wise. And I thought the answer was can't drop them back, can't protect, can't get people open. Let's see if we can run at them, and let's see if our answer is something less, kind of, as I said early in the show, I guess Paulie said it as well, less soft. I wanted to see a bully response with the rookie running back, but they didn't feel, I think, that they were capable of doing that without Bates. That's a problem, though. You've got to be able to run the football if you can't throw it. If not, you might as well punt on first down. Let's go to Mark in Largo. Mark, thanks for holding. What's up?
Hey, how you doing, Kevin? Look, I think everybody needs to slow down. Okay, I think the bigger
Look
issue
at you,
here, Kevin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you medicated today?
No, I'm not medicated.
Okay.
But look, Kevin. Let me tell you something, man. We saw this in the Super Bowl. When Patrick Mahomes sat back and tried to throw a zillion times, you're not going to do that against good defense. Same here. You're not going to do that against Green Bay. You have to run the ball. I understand. Look, here's a decision you have to live with. You got rid of Brian Robinson. There was a chance that Austin Eckler was not going to make it through the season, mainly because of concussion. So if you're Cliff
No
Kingsbury,
doubt. We talked about that. There was a risk of Eckler not making it through this season. Sure, at his age. Yes.
You got to go with what you have. I played this game squarely on Kingsbury. Look, the defense, let me say this, man. You're playing against a top quality offense. The defense can do but so much. And I thought them holding.
Well, people were open by 10 and 12 yards.
And that's okay, fine. I get it. And Washington, for some strange reason, can't get their players open. I don't know why. But here's what I would do. And this is my honest. Noah Brown, I think it's time to bring up Ja'Cory Brooks. And you need to get somebody up there that can give you – you got to start playing these younger guys. Merritt, you're going to have to start him. If you let Brian Robinson go, you're going to have to play Merritt. You got a mini bye week this week, okay? The best bet is to say, look, Jaden, for us to be a complete team, you need a running game. If you could run the ball 20 times, 15 to 20 times a game, no one would want to see this team. But you got to run the ball. If you can't wait till the second half to make Jaden become Superman. And I personally think, and after examining the game yesterday, because I was furious at Jaden for 5 hours, I was furious at Jaden. But I understood where Jaden was coming, how he was doing it. I think Jaden wanted to see how this team was, to see if he was going to have to make some comebacks. And at the same time, it's kind of like we played Philly last year. We knew he was hurt. The second game, he had to be Superman. The third game, he was prepared to be Superman. The problem was in the third game, the rest of the team wasn't with him in the third game. They were with him in the second game. They weren't with him in the third game. Jaden Daniels needs a complete good running game around him. He's still a young quarterback.
It always helps. Always helps. This is a very calm, downed call for you. I'm proud of you. You came out saying everybody calm down, and you have not gotten worked up. You haven't screamed once. I mean, you've elevated your voice, no doubt.
No,
but
because
you're
week,
under
Kevin,
control.
It's week 2.
It's
Kevin,
week 2.
It's week 2.
It was a Thursday night
week
game.
2, and here's
and by the way,
reality,
that
man.
team I think is going to be really good that they played. But
I
we
don't
should
know.
be really good.
You know what, Kevin?
What?
You know what? If they don't get any injuries, yeah. But who knows?
Who knows? It's the NFL.
We don't know how they're going to match up against their divisional foe.
That's
I know
right.
They play Philadelphia November 10th. Look, if you're Washington, what Washington needs to do, if you can get a running game and consistently run the ball, it would help your defense out. I think. Look, Philadelphia had a great running game. I personally think their secondary is extremely suspect. I think we saw that last Thursday.
Yeah,
we saw that last Thursday.
Well,
but if you can
certainly on one side, yes, because Quinyon Mitchell can play. All right, one more point, because you're now getting into the territory of dominating the entire segment.
Okay. Okay. Let me say this. I'm not going to sit up here and beat. I'm not going to sit up here and beat up Marshawn Lattimore.
Okay.
I do think it's Trey Amos has shown us something.
Okay.
But I think in reality, I do think this team has a better running. I thought the defense showed me something last night. I was not disappointed in the defense.
Yeah, Tucker Kraft may think differently. He was open the entire night,
Kevin,
and I'm telling you, there weren't people anywhere near him. We're moving on. You made your last. Let's go to Jason in Laurel, who's been on hold for a while. Jason, thank you so much. Go ahead.
Wow, I can't believe I get to follow him. He's always loud.
Not as much. Not as much on that
day.
call. He was restrained.
not as much. I think today is a little bit of an overreaction. We're all disappointed. Hey, I thought we were going undefeated into Kansas City, but I tell you what, I think there are some bright spots. And I was telling Max, one, this is a team. These guys are out for each other. They love each other. Seeing the injuries, how the whole team reacted. In the post game, everybody taking accountability. Jaden saying, "Hey, it starts with me." I love that. All right, because I don't think anybody thought they were going undefeated and winning the Super Bowl. So I love that they're accountable. Bottom line, they were outcoached. They were outplayed. Green Bay was better prepared. I, like everybody else, think we should have ran the ball more. But I think losing Bates maybe is why that didn't happen. Merritt should have had way more touches. But the biggest thing about yesterday, and 2 points of it, like one, their ability to pressure us with 4 and put 7 in coverage and zone, everybody facing Jaden, that stymied us last night. When you face zone coverage, what we need as an offense is smart receivers and tight ends that can run option routes and find the holes in those zones, and we were never able to do that last night.
No,
now,
the coverage sat on a lot of the stuff short because they knew the ball was coming out quickly because they knew we couldn't protect. But that you nailed it.
Like slants and button hooks, and you're right, they sat on them.
Button hooks. I love button hook. That's like such a 70s, 80s term. That was well done. Good job.
Well, I'm 51,
Jason.
man. Come on, Jeff. But the bright side that I'd leave everybody with and say not to overreact is, despite this being the worst game we've ever seen Jaden Daniels play, this is the worst game we've ever seen him play.
I actually think the first half of the Cowboy game last year was. I don't know that he had any options last night.
The Cowboy game was, but he didn't play the whole game. I think this is the worst
but he was off and he looked terrible in the first half of that game.
He was off for sure, but 1 or 2 plays go differently. We're in that game, Kev.
I think it's more than 1 to 2, but I hear you. It was 17-10. If they could have gotten off the field, which they really couldn't whenever it mattered, then maybe there would have been a chance. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. Bay's been on hold. Really appreciate it. Bay, go ahead. Your floor, right? Go.
Thanks.
Get after it.
Thanks for taking my call, Kev.
Yep.
Kev, Green Bay really need to thank Robert Saleh. Last year, he was their defensive consultant. They run the same exact defense that San Fran runs. And number 2, this game, it didn't bother me as bad. The defense did. And I'll get to that. Jaden Daniels, when he played Tampa Bay the first game, he had to figure it out. He never had seen no defense like that. Last night, he's never seen no defense like that. And number 3, you had said you had a segment during the summertime about our biggest concerns, and we all agreed it was Joe Witt. Joe Witt got to go. That defense that he runs, It is awful. There's no way on earth you're going to continue to tell me that the wide receivers are not even the wide receivers. The tight ends are running wide open in the middle of the field, and he has no idea what he's doing. Marshawn Lattimore played in a defense where you're playing bump and run, and he comes here and you got this man 6 to 10 yards off the wide receiver. What's wrong with that, Kev?
Yeah. I didn't know, by the way, that Robert Saleh was enlisted as a consultant last year for Matt LaFleur. Interesting. You know, the other thing too, I forgot. You know, they lost to the Eagles in the first round of the playoffs. They went 11-6 last year, and I know they lost to almost every good team they played. Some of the games were close, some of them weren't. But they lost Christian Watson in the final weekend of the year. That hurt them too. Saleh's a difference maker for sure as a defensive coordinator, even though he's not. Jeff Hafley is now. But yeah, I think from our chair to say that Joe Witt doesn't know what he's doing, I'm not qualified to say that. What we're all qualified to observe as football fans last year and then last night is it does seem at times like we are off balance, on our heels. Last year, it was primarily the run defense that was the issue. Last night, it was primarily the pass defense that was the issue. Although, you know, I think they did a decent job against the run. Not great, because Jacobs got what he wanted when he needed to get it. But last night, the fact that they had receivers running wide open all over the field is a reason to believe that it could have been scheme, could have been play calling, could have been lack of adjusting, could have been a lot of things that have to do with sideline more than the players on the field. I don't disagree with that. Let's go to Chris in Annapolis. Chris, go ahead.
I think everybody's kind of saying the same thing, but I just want to point out this literally reminded me of the Steve Spurrier days where he would hang our tackles out to dry. And I don't believe Connerly's that bad. I mean, he may not be ready for Micah Parsons on this defense. I get it. But I think Kingsbury, it was malpractice, and it makes me wonder. So for me, I've always thought if you're going to beat a great defense, you have to punch them in the mouth. You can't just drop back and let them punch you in the mouth every play. You have to. And everybody's saying the same thing. But that is exactly what Spurrier did, and I hope
Spurrier went empty against teams blitzing and got Patrick Ramsey. Last night, they just rushed 4. They couldn't block 4 with 5. So
listen, they were
that's a problem. When you can get like the Eagles last year against us in that Thursday night game, I remember it was the same thing with Vic Fangio. It's like if you can get pressure and immediate pressure with 4 without having to send a 5th, and you got 7 in coverage, I mean, you are way ahead of the game if you've got decent players. Sometimes you don't even need decent players on the back end, and that was the problem. And he played into it by continuing to call pass plays. I agree with that part.
Exactly. But you got to take them out of what they want to do, and they wanted to play 7 in coverage. You have to take them out.
Yeah.
And Kingsbury just to not be able to feel that scares me, man. It makes me think he's
well. I don't know that he felt he had an option with Bates out. Maybe that's the answer.
Sinnett's known as a blocker. Like,
not as much as a pass catcher. That's not what he was. Both, but also a pass catcher and a guy that was going to be really good yards after catch. So
I don't buy that excuse.
I mean, look, Sinnett played 3 snaps. Bates played 9.
Terrible.
Bates left the game fairly early. And they didn't have enough confidence in Sinnett to play Bates' role, that's for sure. Thanks, Chris, as always. Let's go to Aveen. Aveen, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. This is some fan rationalization on my part, because if we had played well yesterday and we had won, I would have said it's a statement win. But this really just looks like exactly like how the game at Philly went on Thursday night last year, where Jaden looked confused, the offense looked slow and out of sync. We only had 10 points in the fourth quarter, and, we scored a garbage time touchdown. And, Philly, that game last year, too, on Thursday night, they only had 3 points through, 3 quarters. They looked
they missed a couple field goals. Remember, they had the reverse or trick play go minus 15. They were still the better team, even though they were down.
Yeah.
It felt that way watching it.
Yes, but and then so we looked terrible and super sloppy, and then the month after we looked totally different, and then in the championship game it looked different.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, I'm not going to take that much stock out of a week 2 Thursday night game. That's really hard. Week 2 going on the road on a short week, right to start off the season, and it's long season, and there's a reason these Thursday night games, there's so many blowouts in them, and there's a lot of sloppy play from a lot of teams. So that's a justification I'm using.
Look, that's sensible. I mean, if you're just an NFL fan last night watching, you're like, man, these Thursday night games, they are hard to watch, Washington looked terrible. We've seen them look great. They didn't look themselves. Now, Green Bay was impressive last night. They were very impressive across the board. They were. Thanks for the call, Levine. Let's go to Billy in Chantilly. Billy, thanks for holding, man. Go ahead.
Kevin, did I get bumped to the second segment here?
I didn't mean. Look, the calls have been loaded. I'm not looking at the board entirely. I see you now. That's why I grabbed you. Billy, you there?
Billy, you mad at us?
What happened to Billy?
Did I lose you?
I got you now.
Second.
Yeah. It sounds like 3 people on the line.
Nope, just you. Max was talking, but go ahead.
All right. Listen, this game is a complete hoax. I had a 17-0 record with this team, and there are a lot of hoaxes out there, and I'm ready to storm NFL headquarters. Okay.
So you don't think that last night happened?
It was a complete and utter hoax. We're still 2-0 in my mind. I'll go to my grave saying that we won that game. Can we get these yoga pants that this team is wearing? Can we get some stripes on the yoga pants so they don't look like they're running around ready to do the downward dog?
Mm-hmm.
These uniforms are terrible. The first 2 games, they got no stripes on the pants.
Billy, is this what you've waited the last 45 minutes for?
That's your big complaint, Billy?
Come on, man.
Yeah, that's 2 of them.
I wanted 16-1. 16-1.
This is what happens when you have your number one offensive player on the sidelines for the entire offseason. This is what your offense looks like. Yeah. So you lost 6 weeks, so we got 5 more weeks to have to worry about whether or not the team is going to be organized enough to actually execute a playbook. Did Cliff leave his playbook on the bus? Does he have any capability at all to adjust? Their defense was coming straight up the field at Jaden. You think a draw might be a good idea? Maybe a trap? 34 stack pow?
Yeah. Toss power trap, said Hank Stram.
Trap? No, we're running toss power trap.
But you said something, and I you're the first person to say it, and I was expecting this today. I'm not buying it, but it sounds like you believe that Terry being in earlier would have actually impacted the game last night. Yes, true or not?
Absolutely true. They had no chemistry.
Okay.
Absolutely true. And the NFL Thursday night is for going out, hanging out with my friends, having a drink, having some dinner. I got to watch football on Thursday. I got to go football on Sunday now.
Did you just join the 21st century? We're 25 years into it. I mean, it's part of part of our football watching now. Thursday night football. They've been doing it for years now.
Dan Snyder had me and you and our entire city in football purgatory for the last 25 years.
Right.
So yes,
well, that's an excuse. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I got to go.
I got to go. In there quicker.
Those of you I didn't get to, I apologize. We will certainly be taking your calls and talking more about this on Monday when we've had, some time to digest it. It was not good last night. It's also week 2. And as Zavine said, and I think it's a sensible answer, Thursday night football produces this. Now, I didn't want to see it look this way, though. I'm concerned about their O-line. I am a little bit concerned about their ability against some good teams that they're going to play defensively to protect this quarterback. They're going to have to come up with another way if they're unable to protect him. I also think he's got to be a much bigger part of the run game if you're going to have the run game involved. I'm not talking about being a scrambler. Last night, he made a bad decision on his own read that would have been, I think, a solid 8, 9, 10-yard run and out of bounds. You've got to play 11 on 11 football in the run game with him if you can't protect. All right, my smell test to finish up the show.
All right, happy Friday, everybody, and that's the only good thing about today. The Commanders, they fall to the Packers 27-18 on Thursday Night Football. Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft, and the rest of the Packers offense had their way with Washington for most of the game. But the big story for Washington, the injury bug has arrived, and it is brutal, with 7 players going down and only 2 able to return to the game. Austin Eckler went out with an Achilles injury. Noah Brown out with a groin injury. Dietrich Wise carted off the field with a quad injury. John Bates did not return with a groin strain. Jonathan Jones, hamstring. And Trey Amos and Brandon Coleman were injured, but were able to return. Former Wizards guard Malcolm Brogdon signed a deal with the New York Knicks, entering his 10th NBA season, according to Shams Charania. And the Nats, they fall to the Marlins by a score of 5-0. Mackenzie Gore with 5 innings pitched, giving up 4 hits and 2 earned runs. Giving up both runs early in the first. Nats couldn't really get the offense heated up throughout the rest of the game. Might be a problem in DC as a whole. Might want to get in line. The boys in red and white will shift their focus to the Pittsburgh Pirates tonight. Brad Lord taking the stage versus Mitch Keller. First pitch at 6:45. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
All right, first of all, much better college football weekend this weekend. Denton was on with me yesterday. We previewed it. And a pretty good NFL Sunday led by the late afternoon game, the rematch of the Super Bowl, Kansas City and Philly. The Eagles are 1.5 point favorites, somewhere around there. Smell test last weekend, 6-4-1. I know a lot of you went 7-4 because you had Iowa plus the 3 in the hook. But I gave it out on Friday. Sometimes that works for me. Sometimes it doesn't. So I had to register it as a push. 11-5-1 through the first 2 weeks of the season. I got a lot of plays and very little time to get through them. Let's start with tonight, where Colorado is getting a short number against Houston. Give me Dion and company plus the 4. Also tonight, Kansas State on the road. They have struggled. They're 1-2. They're laying a point at Arizona. Give me K-State minus the 1. UCLA has been horrible in the first few weeks of the season, and somehow they are a 15-point favorite late tonight against New Mexico. Give me the Bruins laying the 15. The public loves New Mexico as a big dog tonight. Let's go to tomorrow. Oregon has been unbelievably impressive here early. 69-3 last week against Oklahoma State, and they took their foot off the brake late in the third quarter. They could have scored 90 if they had wanted to. They're laying 4 touchdowns against Northwestern. I'll take Northwestern because nobody's taking Northwestern. This is going to be a big, big need for a lot of the sports books tomorrow to get Northwestern to somehow keep it within 4 touchdowns. Some sharp money on Northwestern as well. I'll take Northwestern plus the 28. Miami is a good team. USF is ranked. They beat Florida outright. They beat Boise in week 1. And the Canes are laying 17.5. This is a huge anti-public favorite. I'll take Miami and lay the 17.5. The only reason I'm not buying the half point here is because I think this line's going to go up, and I'm not going to take a half point here on Friday to get it to 17. I would not be surprised if they go off at 18.5. There's going to be a lot of sharp money on Miami. Ohio State's looks super impressive. So has Ohio. I gave Ohio out last week, plus the 3.5. They beat West Virginia outright. They're getting 30 at Ohio State. Give me Ohio. The public loves the big favorite in that one. Florida lost to USF last week. LSU's undefeated. LSU has struggled to score. This line opened at 8.5. It's down to 7. Lots of sharp money on Florida. All the public money is on LSU. Give me the Gators plus the 7. Akron is getting 11 at UAB. Why am I going to give out Akron? Because 11's way too short for a team that has yet to score in 2 games. They've been shut out twice, and they're getting a very short number relative to their capability here early in the season. I have no idea who even plays. I couldn't name one player on Akron's team or UAB's team. Doesn't matter. General principle, Akron plus 11 at UAB. Wyoming's getting 24 at Utah. Utah's so well coached. They're such a good team, but the public loves Utah, and there's sharp money on Wyoming. I'll take the Cowboys plus 24. West Virginia, after losing outright at home to Ohio, is getting just 7 against Pitt, who's undefeated. I'll take the Mountaineers plus 7. Let's go to Sunday. I like the Browns plus the 12 at Baltimore. Cleveland played very well last week. Should have won the game. I think, remember last year when Baltimore lost the opener to Kansas City, that close game by a point. Then they came home. Everybody figured they'd pound the Raiders, and they lost outright. I think Cleveland, in the 30-year anniversary of the Ravens in Baltimore after they moved from Cleveland, also the return of Flacco to Baltimore, I like the Browns. The public's on Baltimore in this one, plus the 12. Nobody in their right mind would play the Giants getting 5.5 at Dallas, except for me. Give me New York. That's going to be a huge need for most sports books. 2 more plays. The Dolphins couldn't score. The Pats couldn't score. The total's 43. They're pounding the under, which is rare. I'll take the over 43 in the Pats-Dolphins game. Same thing. Giants couldn't score at all against Washington, 2 field goals, and that totals 44.5. Public pounding the under. I'll take over 44.5. Cowboys, Giants. All right, let me run through these again. Tonight, Colorado plus 4, K-State minus 1, UCLA minus 15. Tomorrow, Northwestern plus 28, Miami minus 17.5, Ohio plus 30, Florida plus 7, Akron plus 11, Wyoming plus 24, and West Virginia plus 7. On Sunday, the Browns plus 12, the Giants plus 5.5, the over 43 in the Pats-Dolphins game, and over 44.5 Cowboys-Giants. These picks will get posted on the team980.com this afternoon. There you go. I don't know how many games that is. 3 looks like a lot. 7, 9, 10, 14 plays for the weekend. Good luck. Enjoy the weekend. Back on Monday.